So now, Mr. Jacobs, if you'd like to make your opening statement or take us through your presentation, whatever way you're going to do it, go ahead. You're very welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We'll do a presentation that will focus on the summer readiness of Cork and Dublin. We're already in the middle of summer from our point of view, so we'll just kind of take you through the key parts. Neil will do Cork and Gary will do Dublin. I'll do a general business update on a few other important topics to us, like the cap that exists at Dublin Airport, and we'll just use a presentation that we will get through, I think, in less than 15 minutes. So the focus at the moment, current issues, state of play, very much on the basics of running two very busy airports in the summer, innovation across Dublin and Cork airports and the rest of DA Group, and then growth at Cork, at Dublin and across our duty-free business and our international business. So a couple of weeks ago we issued we had our AGM and issued our full year results for 2023. So very satisfied with the operational, commercial and financial performance of DA Group. We had over 1 billion revenue for the first time ever. We contributed 153 million in taxes to the Exchequer, and we're very happy that we're paying a 31 million dividend to the state in 2023. Managing debt continues to be an issue for every airport group. Again, we took on about 1 million debt a day during the pandemic, as you can imagine, as airports were nearly shut around Europe. We're still sitting on 815 million in debt that we need to work through. We put a dent in that last year, but we need to continue to do that. Driving efficiency across the business, cost headwinds. Ireland is an expensive place to do business and there are cost headwinds, and driving non-aero revenue. For us, that means selling more car parking spaces, lounges, fast track, duty-free products, food and beverage, everything else we can sell passengers at Dublin and Cork. We've a huge focus on improving the service quality for our passengers, and Neil and Gary will describe that more in greater detail in Cork and Dublin. Very satisfied with the situation in Cork Airport. 95% of passengers are very satisfied with Cork Airport. In Dublin, there's been a huge improvement. So in 2023, passengers at Dublin were 37% more satisfied than they were in the previous year, and that's a big increase. Cork at 95%, Dublin Airport is around 85% satisfaction rate, both very high for European airports. But there's a big mission that we have, which is really to give passengers a very consistent and very resilient experience at both our airports, so that people can get on their holidays, go on their business trips, and the airport never gets in your way. Driving domestic and international growth, so we're planning a Cork Airport that can service demand of passengers up to 5 million. We're planning, as you know, to expand Dublin Airport to 40 million with the infrastructure application that we lodged in December of last year. Other than that, we're managing growth and a portfolio of duty-free operations. 27 airports around the world. We run the duty-free shops, and we're also running 3 terminals in 3 airports in Saudi Arabia. So we're very proud to fly the Irish flag, the flag for Irish aviation in other parts of the world from an operational point of view and from a duty-free point of view. Dublin and Cork airports I would consider our bread and butter. That's where we need to get it right for our core constituents, who are the citizens of Ireland, who are passengers at both our airports. We're investing in people. Very satisfied that we've done a 3-year pay deal for the next 3 years that the vast majority of our staff voted in favour of. I think relationships are in a very good place. The staff surveys that we do are giving us good indication that our staff are happy. I'm a huge believer in, if you want to get it right for passengers, you have to get it right for staff, and we will continue to make those investments in entry levels of pay, in all levels of pay, and that 3-year pay deal wouldn't have been agreed to by our members of staff if they weren't happy with it. A big focus on training and a big improvement in retention. So retention of staff at Dublin and Cork Airport in really the critical roles has never been better. It's about 5%. That's much healthier than most retail businesses around the country and other airports. So very satisfied with that. Challenges remain. So the 32 million cap at Dublin is a great concern for us, because we're now worried that, look, we're doing everything we can to comply with the cap at Dublin, but we're worried that the system may force us into a breach. It's ultimately too early to say. Ironically, the potential Aer Lingus strikes will help with that compliance, because it could take out a chunk of passengers in the summer, depending on what shape the strikes take. Managing debt and rising costs, as I mentioned, is an ongoing challenge, and transforming the business into a zero carbon business by 2050, reducing emissions by 51% by 2030. Aviation needs to do more, airports need to do more, airlines need to do more, but we're on that mission and we absolutely believe it. We do want to build, but we want to build, and we know that that will improve the emissions at Dublin Airport, and ultimately the same will happen at Cork Airport. So that's general introduction of where we're at on basics, innovation and growth, which is what our airport group is all about. I'm now going to hand over to Neil McCarthy, who'll give you an update on Cork Airport.
Very good. Thank you, Kenny. My name is Neil McCarthy. I'm the Managing Director of Cork Airport. I'm wholly accountable and responsible for Cork Airport, the efficient and safe operations, reporting directly into Kenny and with the management team locally in Cork. It's a pleasure to be here today. So Cork Airport, that's a picture of it on the top left. We might just go back one, if we can, please. Yeah, picture of it on the top left. It's a clean, modern, well-maintained building. And we pride ourselves on that. We hope some of you have had the pleasure of travelling through Cork. I know Senator Dooley may have had the pleasure locally residing, but it's very nice. It's akin to Terminal 2 in Dublin Airport, and there's our hard-working maintenance team down there bottom right. Now that's them in winter operations mode, cleaning snow and whatever, but we've very good maintenance team and very good staff there at the airport. Moving to the next slide, please. So we service 48 routes. It's hard to see, but they're the pink dots there across Ireland, the UK and continental Europe. 3 new routes this year. We've Brussels, Charleroi, Rhodes in Greece, Zadar in Croatia. And if you're in a smaller airport, hub connectivity is really important. So what's a hub? A hub is a bigger airport where you can connect largely to long-haul routes. So we, as a small region, won't have daily flights to Dubai, we won't have daily flights to Istanbul, so you need to get to a hub to get to those places. So we fly 28 times a week to Heathrow, and we fly 14 times a week, twice a day to Amsterdam, which is an emerging hub for us and is really popular with passengers. We also fly to 3 other hubs in continental Europe, including Charles de Gaulle. This year we will grow by 7%. We will proudly handle 3 million passengers. And that's a 50% increase since 2015. In terms of flights, we have 40,000 flights per annum. Now, that's almost half and half, commercial flights and non-commercial flights. So commercial flights are your big aircraft flying people in and out on their holidays. Non-commercial flights, we have a flight training school at Cork Airport, Atlantic Flight Training School, and quite a lot of the non-commercial flights are training new pilots. We also have search and rescue, Irish military, Coast Guard, medical evacuation flights. So 40,000 flights, nearly evenly divided between commercial and non-commercial. And the non-commercial are hugely important to the region. 8 scheduled carriers. The bulk of our carriers carrying the bulk of our passengers are Aer Lingus and Ryanair, but we've diversified significantly. We've Air France flying to Charles de Gaulle, KLM flying to Schiphol, Amsterdam, Lufthansa flying to Frankfurt, Swiss, Emerald and TUI flying to other destinations. So moving on, please. So I can assure our members here today that Cork Airport is well prepared for summer 24. We take it very seriously. We take it very seriously every year. We have a detailed plan that we finalise in January for the summer. The plan itself is about 40 pages and we go through everything. But in terms of quickly running you through, we are quite seasonal. Most airports are quite seasonal. So our July and August traffic is about twice what the January and February traffic is. So you need different levels of staffing in the summer than you need in the winter. So what we do is we take on seasonal summer staff, and they're particularly in the car parks and the retail and the security. The complexity in airports is that they have to be background vetted by the Gardaí, so you can't just hire them on a Monday and they start on a Tuesday. You have to wait for maybe 5 weeks or so before they get their background clearances, before they can start work. But we're fully staffed up for summer. 95% of our passengers will get through in less than 15 minutes. In the afternoons, you get through in 5 minutes. When it's quite busy, you get through in 10 minutes, and first wave peak 15 minutes. And that's all electronically monitored and independently recorded. So we don't give those times, that's electronically vetted. Everything in car park is within a 5-minute walk. So we have 3 car parks, blue, red and multi-storey. And we will never say to you to come to the airport more than 90 minutes. You will never hear it come 2 hours. As a matter of fact, you'll make it at 60 minutes, but over the summer, it's probably a bit tight. But we will give a summer advisory and have done of 90 minutes. Food and beverage. We have 4 restaurants. We have 2 separate coffee docks, and we're opening, including an executive lounge, and we're opening a new unit, Roasted Notes, on the 8th of July. I'm conscious of time, so I'll move through it fairly quickly. Pride ourselves in cleanliness. Red Sea survey our passengers independently. They ask them a set of questions, you know, how was security, how was cleaning, how was friendliness of staff. We get 91% on cleaning. It is a clean terminal. We offer free of charge disability services for people with reduced mobility. We have a lanyard scheme for people with hidden hidden disabilities. We have a sensory room for autistic children travelling with families, and we have an assisted guide dog scheme. We're Green Airport, really proud of this one, really proud of this one. So SEAI is the authority in Ireland for sustainability. Cork Airport is the best performing commercially owned body, not airport, commercially owned body in the country out of, I think it's 80, but the best performing commercially owned body in terms of carbon reduction. And overall satisfaction, again by Red Sea, we won Best Regional Airport in Europe in 2017, 2019, and we score between 94 and 95% satisfaction. Last slide, just conscious of time. So our staff, we have great staff, very proud of them. They're friendly, they work hard. We have a lot of electronics in the building. I, on my phone here, and the smartphone, can tell you how many taxis are outside right this minute. They're electronically counted. I can tell you the people in the immigration queue, number of people in the security queue right here, right now. 5 a.m. on a Saturday morning. So all of our staff have access to high technology. So that screen there that says we expect you to be there 5 minutes in the queue is predictive analytics. It's not somebody typing in a number. There's real photos of the terminal. They haven't been photoshopped. So that's how clean the floors are. And we pride ourselves on that. And there's Cork Airport winning Best Regional Airport in Europe back in 2019. So we might be able to convince Deputy O'Rourke and Deputy Smith and Deputy Farrell to travel down to Cork for their summer holidays this year, hopefully. And Deputy Kenny.
Good afternoon. So
I mustn't be going on holidays at all.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Gary McLean, the Managing Director of Dublin Airport, and thank you for your time today. Look, as Kenny said, and Neil has alluded to, we're focused on running a consistent, smooth operation at Dublin Airport. I work with a team of over 2,000 people that are dedicated to delivering 24/7 that consistent experience, making as best as it possibly can be. In an airport like Dublin, as you can imagine, there's a lot going on, a lot of twists and turns every given day, and our team respond magnificently to that, and that's what we're there for, is to work with our partners and our stakeholders to make sure the passenger experience is as positive as it can be at each point in time. Naturally, for a summer period, the busiest part of our year, we do a lot of planning, and as Kenny alluded to, we were very, very keen to make a step change from a really positive year last year into the year ahead. If you want to go on a slide. Look, passengers have great choice in Dublin Airport, more choice than ever this year, with 2,600 departing flights each week, with across 45 airlines and 200 flights a week to the over 200 flights a week to the United States. We are the 5th best connected hub in Europe to the United States, something we're very, very proud of, and something aligned to the National Aviation Policy that we really focus on improving. Already this year, we've had a really busy but positive start to the summer. In May, we had over 3 million passengers pass through Dublin Airport. We've had the busiest day yet ever in Dublin Airport for transfer passengers, and we've had the busiest day yet in Dublin Airport for departing passengers to the United States. So that part of the business continues to grow, a key focus of ours. We've had, May, as I said, has been a really successful month for us, and I think that was really shown when we managed the additional traffic that came with the Europa League final. Over 20,000 fans coming into Dublin and out within a short period of time. The teams, UEFA delegates, and all their guests. We managed over 70 additional aircraft during those few days, which totals over 150 additional movements, and everyone had a really, really positive experience both coming in and going out through Dublin Airport. And that, I suppose, proved that we were ready for what's coming at us for the summer ahead. I'd like to thank all the staff for the work so far in relation to managing through May, and I know everyone's really focused on continuing to deliver that through the summer ahead as we welcome over another 10 million passengers over the peak months. Next slide, please. So similar to Neil, as I said, we've done a lot of work in relation to the summer ahead, all of our teams working together with our stakeholders and really listening to our passengers. We had a passenger forum earlier in the year where we took feedback from our passengers and fed them into our summer plans. And I've summarised there, again, conscious time, I won't go through it all, but I suppose at a high level, we have resource. We've recruited over 300 staff within my areas in advance of the summer season. We are are managing well through those peaks at the moment, and we'll continue to do that through the summer. Our commitment is to have 90% of passengers through security in under 20 minutes. We're running in excess of 95% through passengers so far, through under 20 minutes so far this year, and that's in addition to, I suppose, managing a really challenging project within the space. We all, and I'm sure you're aware of the benefits that will come for both from a security compliance and a passenger experience point of view with our new C3 technology and our body scanners. But that's not without its challenges to implement that. We're now, we have 14 scanners operational, 10 in Terminal 2 and 4 in Terminal 1, which that means that more people than less will go through the new scanners as they pass through Dublin Airport this summer. We'll continue to roll that out for the rest. We'll continue to roll that out in T2. We've paused T1 for the next number of months just because of how busy it is and the fact we need to reinforce floors as part of installation of the next unit. So we can't obviously do that in the busy summer period. As part of the review, we're focused on all of our passengers, all our passenger types. It's an airport for all, as it says there, and we've introduced a new autism-friendly sensory room at Terminal 1, adding to the Terminal 2 one, which has been really well used and received, and we've refurbished that. We've looked at our family experience and introduced entertainment on all of our piers for our families. We've really focused on the standards and the basics, as Kenny alluded to on the first slide. So that includes our cleaning standard and more hours into that, but it also includes things passengers, I suppose, want, which is around additional seating. Always a challenge in the airport, but we've added 350 additional seats. We've added additional charging facilities, and we've added all of those basics that passengers want across their journey. Not necessarily visible to passengers, but there's been a lot of work ongoing around the airfield performance as well. The new runway now nearly almost 2 years in place, and how we get better efficiency out of the airport, which results in better performance, I guess, in the overall system as we roll out the summer ahead. Next slide, please. And similar to Neil, we're always looking to innovate and improve, and so I won't call them all out there, but I think I'll summarise them as being, our passengers have told us they want to be in more control and more choice, and our new app and better Wi-Fi allows them to be in more control as they move through the airport. They've looked for additional choice and different products, and we have introduced new products like valet parking, new better lounges, more choices and variety across those, and also obviously they've called out, as I mentioned already, the better passenger experience. So focusing on improvements across the terminal, improved look and feel of our lobbies, improved wayfinding, new toilets been moved from landside to airside to increase capacity in some constrained areas. Without going through them all, a lot of improvements, and a team really focused and dedicated on driving a better passenger experience this summer. Next slide, please. And then finally, we're really focused also on how passengers get to and from the airport. We've seen, obviously, an increase in people using public transport, and we're working with both our partners and the national authorities in relation to continue to increase the focus on how people access the airport. There has been reduced level of traffic seen around the airport as a result of that kind of modal switch, and also in addition to that, we've focused on increasing our bus connectivity, over 1,000 bus movements per day this summer, and for the first time connectivity to all 32 counties on the island. So I think that gives, again, a lot more choice and variety to people. Our car parks are busy. We've exhausted all options in relation to adding additional spaces, and so our focus as a team is obviously on managing what we have and manage it really well, and trying to have people so ensuring people have a positive experience as they use our car parks. But we are recommending they book early. It will sell out at peak times. We're seeing that even in the coming weekend ahead, and so that's key. And then finally, we're working with our taxi permit holders. Last year we increased those permits, and we've continued to maintain the level of permits that we feel are required to meet the needs of passengers at the airport. So in summary, I guess, we've had a really good start to the year. We have a team that are really focused on providing the best possible experience for our passengers day in, day out, 24/7. And we will work with other stakeholders and continue to evolve our plans to make sure we deal with whatever changes that might happen and might come at us during the summer. So thank you for your time.
Okay. Thanks, Gary. Thanks, Neil. Look, I think you can hear where we're at with the basics. The focus is absolutely on the passengers. DAA is all about the passenger. That's the most important stakeholder we have. To service passengers with a really good airport experience, you need to have staff that are very well motivated, well trained, and delivering on those big days. Last Sunday at Dublin Airport was nearly 120,000 passengers. That's a huge day. If every day was like 120,000 day, that would be a Dublin Airport operating at over 40 million passengers and showing it that it can do that. That is down to the team. That's the people in the security lanes, the people cleaning the airport, the people running the car parks, the people driving the buses, the people on airside, the people in what we call the APOC, the people making sure that all aircraft are coming to stand, doing everything properly. They're the real heroes in our organisation, the ones that can get through a day like that at Dublin Airport, get through similar days at Cork Airport, and just get passengers on the way with a smile on their face. A couple of quick other topics that I'll just quickly canter through. On sustainability, look, this remains a really important mission for us, and it really does underpin everything that we do. We've recently announced the opening of a solar farm, which is going to provide 10% of our energy needs. We're very happy with that. We're looking at other options that would further improve and make us self-sufficient from an energy point of view, but alternative fuels, we're increasing our use of renewables, what we're doing with waste, the SAF support that we have in place. We're part of the National Council on SAF. SAF can come at Dublin Airport and can be used at Dublin Airport. There's nothing stopping that today, and we remain absolutely focused on reducing our emissions by 51% by 2030 and being net zero by 2030. Nothing has changed on that plan that we have signed up to, and we are looking at this and looking at new things we can do and looking at our delivery in this area every single week. We need to build to reduce emissions because Terminal 1 is very old, and that's a critical part of our infrastructure application. On to the next slide. We're listening. We're listening locally in the Fingal area. We're listening wider in Dublin and Leinster, and we're listening nationally. I've myself have been out 6 times in the past year to the local community, to households very near the runways where noise is a serious issue, but to meeting the groups, the St Margaret's group, the DAWG, the CLG, the key groups that are involved at the airport. Overall, in the past year, we've had 100 community visits. 4 community liaison group meetings have been completed this year, and I think we are actively listening in the community, not just in Fingal. We've met with representatives from East Meath. I'm going to visit Meath over the summer, places like Rathoath and Ashburn, to hear people's concerns, to hear what the noise is, and to communicate with people. And we want to take a wider view in the community that we're engaging with. A couple of other things I've called out. At a national level, 65% of people in Ireland support the further development at Dublin Airport. 73% agree that Dublin Airport should be able to grow passenger numbers for Ireland's connectivity. Locally within Fingal area, 84% acknowledge the airport's contribution to the local economy, and 77% support future expansion needs. We're engaging with Fingal Council. I will meet the new councillors that have been elected in the coming months. We were in the chamber in the past 6 months. We're sending a bi-monthly newsletter to Fingal and getting feedback from them, and we will continue to actively engage. I think at 2 committees ago, I think it was mentioned here about the community viewing area, which we had been working on, but I think you'll have seen that we've submitted a planning application for this, and this will be a great local initiative. So I think we're listening. You can never say we've done enough listening. We will continue to listen in Fingal, in Dublin and beyond, to hear from the local community. Noise is serious, and we take it very, very seriously, and we want to look at everything we can to take noise away. Emissions is serious, and being a good neighbour is something we're absolutely committed to. If I go on to the next slide, on noise specifically, we now have over 20 fixed and temporary noise monitoring stations. We've completed over 160 installations, and there's 38 more homes eligible for installation. But more importantly, within the relevant action that's with An Bord Pleanála, we've got 660 homes that are further could be included for installation, which is very, very good. 38 homes are eligible for the buyout scheme. We're actively engaging with those people. That's buying out at market value plus 25%. Flight paths can evolve, and we are actively looking at the flight paths. We're responsible for the flight paths. We devolve that to AirNav, and ultimately the IAA sign off flight paths. If there's a better flight path out there that removes noise from the system, because it's not just about moving it from over community A to community B. It's about, can you remove noise from the system? And we are looking at that with our own flight operations teams, with AirNav and with the IAA. And I hope by the end of the year we'll have a point of view on if there is a better flight path out there that takes noise away. Then we will look at implementing that in a practical way in conjunction with AirNav and the IAA. The underpass, I think that was talked about here when Ryanair we're convinced we don't see a Dublin airport operating into the future. And the key thing for me is we want to start planning and thinking of a Dublin airport in the year 2050, in the year 2040. I don't see an efficient and safe Dublin airport when we're operating at 45 million and above. That's without an underpass. Underpasses like the one that we plan to build exist in Madrid, in Barcelona, in Charles de Gaulle, in Schiphol, in Frankfurt, in a lot of big hub airports. And a lot of our other airline customers are supportive of it, and we need it. So noise, you never stop doing everything you can on noise to try and take it away. The best things are that you insulate homes, that you buy out homes that are very near the runways, that you incentivize newer, greener aircraft, and we are looking to reduce the charges by 25% for airlines with those types of aircraft, and we'll continue to do that. Moving on to the passenger cap. I'm worried about the passenger cap. We have done everything that we can comply, and it's still we're halfway through the year. We abstained from the slot process last year. We've brought proposals to the slot committee on reducing the number of ad hoc movements. The airlines didn't vote for those. We welcome the new decision by the IAA on the passenger parameter that's been introduced on the passenger cap. I think that's going to give us a platform for compliance in 2025. We wish that had been a little bit sooner because it would have helped with this summer. But I am concerned that we will be forced into a breach on the 32 million passenger cap because not enough has been done. I think, as you know, and we explained it the last time, we don't control the passenger number with a tap. The passenger number is determined by the slot process. The slot process is regulated and governed by the IAA. Obviously, the airlines want as many slots as they can. A lot of airlines have contacted us in the past 6 months. I've spoken to 10 airlines myself and said, look, I can't stop you applying for slots, but my advice would be if you get them in 2024, you may not keep them in 2025. So if I was you, I would think twice. And we're comfortable that we've done everything that we can do to comply with the passenger cap, and there are 6 months to go, and we will see what happens. The Aer Lingus strikes, if they happen, and I hope they don't happen, could take a number of passengers out of the mix, and that would not be a good thing for Irish aviation, would be a terrible thing for anyone who's got holidays booked with Aer Lingus, but will help towards compliance. But I'm confident that we've done everything that we can to comply with the passenger cap, but I fear that we may be forced into a breach at the end of the year. Finally, moving on to charges, I'll quickly say, look, the charges are still not high enough. Even at $9.20 per passenger. And I know last week Ryanair said that the charges are going up by 45%. The charges are not going up by 45%. There's a bigger chance of us operating an airport on the moon than charges going up by 45%. The charges are regulated. They will, looking at 2025, 26 and 27, we think go up in line with inflation. Dublin Airport is still the lowest charging airport, capital city airport in all of Europe. We want a modest increase in charges. What would we do with that modest increase in charges? We would put all of it back into the passenger. And we want faster queues, we want a better airport and permanent resilience for passengers at Dublin Airport. So rounding off and in summary, if you could go on to the next slide, please. I would say, looking forward, and I think Ireland and any part of infrastructure, we need to, I think, get better at really looking at the year 2050 and that long-term planning point of view. Davies this morning published a point of view on the population growth in Ireland and how you look at the past 5 years, it was undercalled by about 10%. So we think that the population growth in Ireland by the year 2040 and 2050, you're going to need, by the year 2040, a Dublin airport that can take over 40 million passengers. If you look at the year 2050, it's going to be close on 50 million. And not everybody likes that and not everybody welcomes that. I see bigger growth at Cork Airport. I see the potential for significant growth at Shannon Airport. And I hope that aviation along the way between airlines, ourselves and the whole system do come up with alternative energy sources that will power aircraft. But Ireland is a small open economy. Connectivity is essential. We have a young growing population. We're an open economy, and that transportation demand and that flight demand we see really increasing, and I think we want to get ahead of it, and we want to get better ourselves at DA for planning for the future in both Dublin and Cork. So we are thinking about what is the airport that we need at Dublin and Cork in the year 2050, what does that look like, and ultimately what is the capacity that airport needs to be able to serve. In summary then, so look, Cork and Dublin airports from my point of view are ready. That's down to the teams that we have, really proud of the teams that we have, the way they work, and the delivery that we've had for passengers in this past year. We are in the summer. You couldn't deliver a Europa League final, you couldn't deliver 120,000 day like we had in Dublin last Sunday without the team being really up for it, and we're very proud of what they do. Outside of Ireland, we have a good international business. Again, we run duty-free shops in 27 airports around the world. We run 3 big terminals in Saudi Arabia, and we want to run more. And we're very happy to fly the Irish flag in aviation around the world, as well as doing a very good job for passengers here. We have a sharp focus on improving the little things. That's what it's really about when it comes to a good airport. We continue to work closely with the IAA. We welcome the new decision that they've issued on the passenger parameter that will help us comply with the cap, but I am concerned that we may be forced into a breach later in the year. Airport growth and improved sustainability, they can go hand in hand. We want to build a Dublin airport to reduce emissions at Dublin Airport because T1 is very old in parts, and we also want to support the connectivity needs of Ireland. Cork and Dublin Airport play a huge role in Ireland's economy. Combined, they support over 10 billion in economic value add, and we want that to continue. And finally, I would say, look, Ireland is great at aviation. It's absolutely great to go to different parts of the world and people say, wow, you guys have got Aer Lingus, you've got Ryanair, you've got Dublin Airport, Cork Airport, Shannon Airport, you invented duty free in the form of Aer Lingus. We're really good at this. And for me, Dublin and Cork Airport need to be a showcase for the world to come to and say, actually, these guys are great at running airlines, they're great at running airports, and that's what we want to bring to the rest of the world. So thank you very much. That's our end of our opening statement in the form of the presentation.
Thank you very much you had 5 minutes and you took it took a half an hour, but hopefully a lot of the points that might have otherwise been that we would have ended up talking about in questions have been covered. So I'm going to give everyone 7 minutes and a kind of 1 minute wrap up, and then we might get a second round in. I'm conscious we're finishing at 3:30, so if you can kind of not be too repetitive, everybody, and just to keep it moving. So Darren O'Rourke, go ahead, 7 minutes.
Thanks, and thanks for the presentations. As a TD from Mead East, you'll appreciate if I focus.
The timer's not working, so we'll let you know when it's okay.
If you'll appreciate if I focus on the noise mitigation and planning update slides, Mr. Jacobs. You mentioned that a way to deal with noise is to buy homes and to insulate homes, but another way, of course, is to design flight paths that don't fly over homes and flight paths that are appropriately assessed and that are planning compliant. And you'll be aware that there are very specific proposals from the community for alternative flight paths that could achieve just that in relation to the North Runway. Can I ask, in relation to the North Runway as it currently operates, has it been environmentally assessed, environmental impact assessment, noise assessment? My understanding is that a planning application went in 2007, that there were assessments at that stage, but in fact we're operating entirely different flight paths at this stage that are impacting on homes, communities. You mentioned Ratoath and Ashbourne, for example. There are others that were never intended to be overflown.
Okay. Thank you, Deputy O'Rourke. I'll give a few opening comments and then I might get Gary McLean to say a few points. First thing, I think it's important that planning doesn't govern flight paths. So flight paths were not part of the planning process. The flight paths for the North Runway were consulted in 2016, not in 2007. Is a noise assessment will be, look, the operations of ANCA, because they ultimately are the regulator for noise, that will cover both runways, any year, any runway, any type of everything. ANCA are responsible and work closely with ANCA in terms of what are the noise contours and where is noise. I think in the community we've met with myself and Gary have met with the Ashbourne pilots groups, and we think there's a few interesting proposals there. Now we will take those away and we'll look at them in the appropriate way, because you have to look at what's practical, what can be implemented. You have to bear in mind Weston, Baldonnel, even the movements of Garda Síochána helicopters in the airspace around the airport. I'm confident if there's a better flight path that can work, we will find it and we will implement it. It will take some time because, look, we're in a very busy summer period. It's a busy airspace. It's not just about moving noise from, as I said, over community A to over community B. I think the challenge that we want to take on is taking it away at all. So just removing noise from the system, which is the objective that we would have. So different pilots will have different views. You know, you can talk to an Aer Lingus pilot who would say, well, if you just did this on the missed approach, noise would be gone. A Ryanair pilot might say something different. But we have to do this in conjunction with AirNav and in conjunction with the IA. And we're open to hear. We have heard. We've met with the pilot group from Ashburn, and we want to take ideas on board.
Can I ask in relation to the planning piece? So you're saying the flight paths are currently operating. They haven't been. There hasn't been an environmental impact assessment in relation to them. There hasn't been a noise impact assessment in relation to them.
There is a noise impact assessment. The environmental impact, I think, is part of planning, but the flight paths are not part of planning.
For example, you specifically say yourself, which for me is counterintuitive. Like there are people. You're saying that there are an additional 660 homes that will become eligible for insulation if planning is approved on the relevant action. There are 38 homes will become eligible for. So for me, that says that's directly related to the operation of the flight paths as they currently are, because we know that an additional 7 odd acres have come in terms of your own further information. So is it not the case that it's directly related to planning, and there is a planning element to it that...
There's a planning dimension to it. Now, the 38 homes eligible for the BOUT, that's outside of the relevant action that's currently sitting with on board Planola. We've put the 660 homes as part into the relevant action that are available for insulation. We're waiting for new contours work to come out from ANCA, the noise regulator, that will determine where, in their view, is there noise at a level that insulation should be part of things. Typically, from the monitoring that we do, if you take the East Meath area, and if you take noise down to decibels and where it's at, and there's a standard metric that measures noise in transportation infrastructure. Ashburn, for example, would be 40, and generally East Meath is in the low 40s to mid 40s. It's really when you get at 63 decibels, so far is when you would insulate, and when you're over 69 decibels that you would consider buyout. So we don't think noise in general, and noise is a very serious issue, but we don't think the levels of noise that we monitor are at a level where insulation and buyout are come onto the table in East Meath. But if the regulator says they do, then we will follow that. But
you will accept that there are people who will strongly contest the way those measurements are made, the way they're averaged out. If you have experience, and you've indicated you'd go to Ashburn and Ratoath Meath residents there, I know other deputies and senators in this committee will hear practically on a daily basis the monitoring that is well in excess of what ANCA or others will report, and I think that has to be acknowledged and needs to be responded to in my firm opinion.
No, I am acknowledging it, and we want to respond. Like, I think we have to look. It's a regulated area, so we will follow the measurement that ANCA has. We will follow what ANCA tell us to do in terms of where they think needs to be insulated based on the contours. I'm going to go out to East Meath myself because I want to hear it. But again, closer to the airport. Look, I've been in households where I thought, yeah, noise is a problem inside the house and outside the house. So we do take it very seriously.
On the planning piece then, are you saying that as far as the DAA is concerned, that the operation of the flight paths as they currently are is planning compliant, is regulatory and compliant, it meets the standards that apply to flight paths? Yeah,
we're happy that the flight paths are compliant with what was consulted in 2016. We have an open mind that if there's an improvement in flight paths, and again, very important, we're responsible for flight paths. Gary, as the accountable executive, is responsible for the flight paths. If there's a better flight path out there, we will consult, we will see what that is. We ultimately want to remove noise from the system, not just move noise from one place to another place.
Is it not the case, and you've mentioned, you're dealing with your own operations department with the IAA and with AirNav, but is it not the case that AirNav do not have skills in-house to look at parallel runways, and in fact they've been, a part of the problem here. Are there not others that you could and in fact should go to consult in terms of the operation of the aerodrome and of the North Runway?
Well, look, I think AirNav, we have huge respect for AirNav. It's a busy airport and they do a really, really good job. So very, very satisfied with the competence, the capabilities that are in AirNav. Ultimately, look, the challenge that we're taking on is if there's a better flight path, we're responsible. We'll find one. If there's a better one, we'll do that in consultation with AirNav and the IAA.
But you've also said in your present, the very last, in terms of that you're engaging with AirNav to determine how a consultation process could be run in the future, and that potentially provides scope to further explore suggestions and communities. That, to me, suggests, and I am firmly of the opinion, that it's not just the IAA and the AirNav you need to consult. You need to consult with those groups. I think there's expertise in the community, whether it be in terms of the Ashbourne pilots or the possibility of dependent runway operations. That is a potential option there.
I agree, and I'll ask Gary to add a bit of colour to what our thoughts are on that.
And you think towards the end of the year, is that the indicative timeline that you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yes, so look, we've met with the groups you're referencing, but we've also met with others around proposed or could we look at different things. Safety has been the #1 priority when it came to design the flight paths, but also we're willing to and open to understanding the impacts and how we can look at that into the future. What we referenced is we need a process, and what's referenced in the slides is a process that will allow a voice to everyone who has a voice in relation to, because if you just listen to one group, you might move the problem just from, or perceived problem from one place to another. So we want to have an open consultative process which allows everyone to have a voice initially, but then allows us to through consultants and experts in the airspace design, it's done in conjunction with AirNav, but ultimately we're going to have to contract with airspace designers to understand the implications, not just from noise, but from safety and other measures as well, environmental measures, all the different measures at play in relation to the proposals that we have already received and any other ideas people will have. So I'm engaged with other airports that have run similar type, obviously no airport's the same, obviously our two airports are the same, similar types of processes in the past, and we're working through that to try and scope it out. So we don't have definitive time periods on, but we are committed to trying to scope that out, get the team on board, engage with communities and other interested parties, airlines, everybody, users, and then come back with a proposal that's joined up and hopefully addresses a balanced approach towards that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. McLean. Thank you, Deputy O'Rourke. Deputy Crowe, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. Thanks for being here today. I have quite a few questions. I'll go through them nice and quickly if possible. I just want to repeat, these are your words, Mr. Jacobs. We want to get ahead of it all. And you were talking, I think, about the pressures, the cap and everything else. But do you feel that Dublin Airport Authority have rushed in, gotten ahead of government, blindsided government even in terms of getting your planning application into the system before the national aviation policy is looked at? Because Ireland isn't just about one airport on the East Coast. There's many more. There's Shannon in my own constituency, there's Cork, there's Knock, and the national aviation policy looks comprehensively at all Irish airports. And have you, of all of that process, blindsided, if you like, by getting your application for planning in before that even begins?
No, the opposite. In fact, I wish we had done it sooner. If you go back and look at the annual passenger numbers at Dublin, I think we should have submitted a planning application years ago. I think waiting for the national aviation policy would mean that we would be turning away connectivity, turning away demand and costing jobs at Dublin Airport for a number of years. So I'm very glad we submitted the infrastructure application in December 23. If anything, I would prefer that if we had done that sooner.
But why wouldn't you have waited for the national policy review to take place? We heard from Michael O'Leary last week that you've been to the Minister, you're awaiting a decision from him. Now he has his own political future rather changing in the past 24 hours, but if all of that's happening, why go in quickly as a semi-state? Why go in ahead of the state here with an application?
And again, I don't think we've gone in quickly. I think we've gone in late, if anything. So the demand from airlines, the demand from passengers is greater than the cap. If we didn't have a cap today at Dublin Airport of 32 million, and airlines could come to us and say, can I get the slots? Can you give me a deal? I think you'd be looking at a Dublin airport that could potentially be 35, 36 million already. So if you were waiting for the national aviation policy, I think you could have a 4-year period where Ireland, Dublin Airport is turning away connectivity to airports like Manchester, Gatwick, Edinburgh, who are now actively marketing to airlines saying, Dublin stock, come to us. That would just move jobs to there. That would be the worst possible thing for Irish aviation, the worst possible thing for the jobs that exist, not future jobs being created, but real jobs. So if anything, I wish we'd gone with the infrastructure application sooner.
Okay, and the whole country is obsessed about this 32 million cap. Are you in breach of any other planning conditions that were set out by Bord Pleanála or Fingal County Council?
No.
None whatsoever?
No.
And just to go back on a point that Deputy O'Rourke said, can you confirm that noise thresholds are not set out in planning?
No, the flight paths, as I said, are not governed, by planning. Noise is governed by ANCA, which is in the same building as Fingal. It's a totally independent regulator. But noise is regulated. We have to follow that regulation on noise. But flight paths are not governed by planning.
But we've been circulated, all members of this committee, with information which would suggest you're repeatedly in breach of some of those noise regulations.
I think you'd have to write to me to say which ones they are, and I'd be happy to
just
reply.
with a tongue firmly in my cheek, I'm just wondering why does it matter hugely that one planning condition imposes a cap, and yet there's other planning conditions, some would say on a daily basis, that are not adhered to?
You'd have to let me know what those planning conditions are. Look, planning, we are saying we want to comply, and we are turning away business, and we are encouraging airlines not to come to Dublin, because if you get slots, you might not keep them. Planning is the law, as far as I'm concerned, and we want to comply with planning, and the only way I see the cap being lifted is through planning.
And I asked the last time before the committee that I think if I can recall correctly, you said when you get near the Christmas period you'll be getting very close at 32 million cap, and I'm just wondering who will be the fall guys. Is it the incidental charter flights? Is it Ryanair? Is it Aer Lingus? Or who are you in talks with now, cautioning them that their flights may not take? Will people get home for Christmas even at that time of year?
I think it's very important that everybody hears the message. Everybody will get home for Christmas. So I know there was some excitement that flights will be cancelled. Look, Ryanair have already been told, and all the airlines have been told, what you had last winter you will keep this winter. That's the historic rights. The historic slots will continue in the winter of 2024. So no one needs to be worried about not being able to get home at Christmas. The airlines won't get everything new that they're looking for, but everything that they had, they will keep. So people don't need to be worried about Christmas. Look, is there a fall guy come to the end of the year? Let's wait and see what the number looks like. I'm concerned now because there's great demand from the airlines. We're tracking ahead of it. The IAA govern the slots. The slots is what determines the passenger number. Different airlines might do different things. Ryanair have already said publicly that they're not going to be adding aircraft to Dublin. That's because they can't get them in to get new slots. Aer Lingus are unfortunately looking at some potential strikes that might take passengers away. But I am concerned that we will be forced into a breach because too many airlines want too many slots. What happens in global aviation is when you look, the world doesn't understand why there's a passenger cap at Dublin, because there generally isn't one elsewhere in the world. But airlines now want to pile into Dublin because it's a really good place to be. The charges are low, and they know it would be capped for a number of years.
I get the job you have to do, and you have to run Dublin Airport and Cork. I get that, and you're here speaking for them. But when you speak of sustainability, is it not a bit incongruent, perhaps disingenuous, to talk about sustainability at a time when it's unsustainable to have all of these flights coming out of Dublin without adding an extra brick, pane of glass or iron rod, reinforcing rod in Shannon Airport? It can double its capacity. I believe Cork also says it can take more. So why would you invest everything on one airport at the detriment of others?
But we're absolutely not. We want to grow Cork Airport by 40%. Cork Airport, as Neil said, will be...
We know that, but Shannon, are you in talks with Mary Constantine?
I met Mary about 6 weeks ago down in Shannon, and I'd love Shannon
Surely she can relieve some of the pressure you're under at the moment.
She can, and that was part of the conversation that we had. Look, I'm a great believer in all Irish airports. I would love Shannon to grow, and I see some potential flights that can move to Shannon. We have a very big plan for growing Cork by 40%, and we want to grow Dublin. We want to grow our two airports to meet the transportation needs of Ireland, and I wish Shannon the very best of luck. And if there's some capacity that can move to Shannon, I think it might be possible. We will keep talking to Mary and her team about that happening.
Michael O'Leary said last week he reckons it could take up to 5 years to get this planning straightened. I'm sure he's listening in today. What would you say to him? Like, he's very worried about his base in Dublin. And is that a realistic timeline in your eyes?
Well, look, I think some of the members here might give me a better view on planning. I'm not a planning expert.
And his two suggestions to overcome it, are they realistic?
Well, look, I'm hopeful, but I'm a glass half full person that we can get the 40 million application approved within 2 years. I hope that's the time frame that's realistic, but I'm not an expert on planning. On the other methods that he talked about, look, I think there's views out there that you can have a ministerial directive, there can be litigation. That's for other people. We're focused on planning. Planning is the law. I see the cap only being lifted by planning. That's the 40 million infrastructure application being granted. We may consider an operational application, okay? We may build nothing, but submit an application to Fingal to have greater operational flexibility to be able to operate to a number beyond 32 million with the cap being lifted without building anything. But we are solely focused on planning being the only route for DEA for the cap to be lifted, not looking at those other routes, and I hope planning can work within 2 years.
In my wrap-up minute, I've one final question. I've one final question. There are airlines selling very bargain basement airfares out of your airport and other Irish airports, but I just want to put to you that parking charges at Dublin Airport far exceed any city centre car park at the moment. €40 per day short term, that's a capped price. €16.50 per day in Express Red and €14 per day in the Holiday Blue. I'm just wondering, from a consumer point of view, they're not huge prices, and you still have a long way to get to the terminal. And when we want people flying in and out of Ireland, we all have certain preferences where they might fly in and out of. But at the very least, from a consumer point of view, is it not somewhat ludicrous that it's more expensive to park your car on the tarmac than it is to take to the skies and fly to an international country?
Well, we look at the charges compared to downtown. For example, I'm going to be 4 hours in the Setanta car park near here, and I'm going to pay over €20. So we do benchmark against downtown car parking prices, and we are always cheaper. That's short term and long term. We will look at that. You know, we're stuck for car park spaces. I wish we had more for the summer, but we won't have more for the summer. It's up to us to manage them well. And I'm thankful that passengers using Dublin Airport have heeded our advice to book early, and if the earlier you book, the better value you'll get.
Okay, thanks. Thank you very much.
Deputy Crow, no problem. And you got two minutes in your wrap-up, so you're doing well. Now, just my own slot. I'm going to probably touch more on the operational side of it, because I know we've got quite a number of local TDs who will touch on the runway and the noise and so on. In terms of Aer Lingus strike, just explain to us, I mean, obviously it's the Aer Lingus passengers that suffer, but in terms of how the airport handles a strike, you've a load of planes on the ground that wouldn't normally be on the ground, clogging up the place. You have then a backlog the day after or the day after. What challenges will Dublin Airport have if the strike goes ahead, which of course we all hope it doesn't?
Yeah, so we're already fully engaged with Aer Lingus around potential scenarios. Obviously, nobody knows exactly how it will play out just yet. You know, you're right. Depending on the scenarios, we will have a lot more aircraft on the ground. We will have additional challenges around facilitating those aircraft while continuing to manage everything else efficiently. But we're working through those scenarios, and we will look at areas in which they can park aircraft in a way that, you know, should they need to get them back online quickly, that they can manage to do that. You know, so we have those detailed scenarios, but you know, and those, and we're actually working with Aer Lingus day in day out at the moment in relation to that. But until we exactly know how it will play out, it's kind of hard to. And
then the following day, obviously, you have backlogs they're trying to clear and all that. How does that affect your operation?
Exactly. And look, I think, you know, from our own point of view, we're managing security, managing the other elements of that. You know, we're keen to ensure we understand the impact on either side of that day or an event, I suppose. And so, you know, we're looking at the entire ecosystem to make sure we look after all our passengers, all our customers, while obviously working with Aer Lingus to work through their challenges as well.
Just in terms of, I happened to be on two reasonably late night flights not that long ago, and the airport is, I understand there has to be a wind down, but you have big label signs up going duty free flight, and then the duty free's all shut. The bars start to close. It's great for security, I have to say, in terms of time you fly through it. But I mean, is there a way of keeping anything open a little bit longer in terms of the shops for those people who are using those later flights? Because obviously it makes sense. You're sweating the asset. You want planes leaving at all hours, not all doing the 6 o'clock in the morning. Flights that go out at certain, you know, it's good that they're going, but they don't really get the same experience of the airport that they might get earlier. Is there a possibility for that to be looked at?
Yeah, look, there's always a possibility. I think at the moment what we're focused on is ensuring there are the basics available. So whether that's food, coffee, water, whatever that may be, you know, the additional offerings. So we have extended hours in a lot of our facilities, maybe not as late because just the economics of how late you can keep them open for the small number.
I mean, I'm not suggesting that everything is open till midnight, but maybe if there was a basic offering, particularly when there's big signs up saying this is a duty-free flight, and then you just cover, unless you turn up 4 hours early, you won't get the duty-free. Yeah, well, look, we can look at that again. Obviously, there is a balance that in relation to... okay, it's just something I think you should consider. Yeah. And likewise, one of my own brothers was away and the flight was slightly delayed. I was coming in at 1:45. He had to check in bag. It was 20 minutes late. Got in. The air coaches are gone. Is there a way of you're in touch with? You know, we're trying to get people to use buses. I'm not saying they need to go 24 hours, but could they go? You know, there'll be a facility that if the planes are delayed on particular nights, so there's an extra one is there. Particularly when they've pre-booked, they've paid for the service. They don't get it and they're stuck with a €50 taxi or whatever it is because at that hour of the night there's not much available. You know, I think it's great. I never drive to the airport. I just don't do it anymore at all. And I will always get the air coach, and that involves a bit of complication. You have to maybe get a lift from the air coach at the other end, or get dropped down to it, or whatever, depending on the time of day. But we should be encouraging people to use buses, and the buses should be in line with the passenger schedules and make allowances for delays. I accept air coach is a profit route and not a PSO route, but at the same time I do think it's important, particularly when people are pre-booked, they've paid for the service, they're not getting it. Is there a way of talking to them? And yeah, look, our teams are very much engaged with all the service providers, and look, I think... And don't get me wrong, it's a good service, and I know it's been extended to Cherrywood and from next week or the week after, so I mean, it's a positive service. It's much busier than it was when I started using it a long time ago, but I think we need to make sure that the facilities are there when the airport is open. Yeah, look, and I suppose, yes, we're seeing now a lot more routes and options through the night. Again, depending on specifics, not all obviously economically viable to run maybe as frequent, 24 hours a day. But we do encourage that. What we do is we provide the information on the flights in advance, and then obviously when things change, obviously what you know, we'll let the providers know. Yeah, look, depending on the specifics of what route and whatever, there may be a gap in the quietest time, and that's obviously... Officially, the last one is the 1:25 in the morning, which probably makes sense some days, but, you know, particularly summertime, flights are coming in a bit later. Sure. The right. 40 bus goes 24 hours. Yeah, so... bus. So yeah, I was going to say, like, you know, it might not be the route you want. There will be options to get out of the airport on public transport to maybe connect onto or get closer, I suppose. Yeah. It might not be the... But again, when people have paid for their service, they should be able to at least avail of it. I think they should be able to, when flights are delayed, to provide an extra maybe route or whatever, an extra time slot. In terms of the Cork survey and the Cork survey came out very well. Do you do the same survey for Dublin, and where's it? You're 94 or 95% in Cork. What's the same figure for Dublin? Yeah, no, we do the same with a number of different surveys, obviously independent surveys from a point of view of our regulator, the IAA. We have service quality measures that are independently measured, but we do our own as well. You know, and so we'll obviously have consequences if we don't hit a certain level on those service qualities, and so thankfully they're going really well this year so far, and our own surveys are saying that back. So I think Kenny referenced roughly about 85% positivity, so it's a mark out of 10 that people will give us on across a broad range of questions. Okay, so you're on about 85 and they're on about 94, so you have a little bit of catching up to do, but you know, no pressure between you. In terms of the 100 mil limit, when we get to the C3 scanners everywhere, will that limit go or not go? Yeah, so when all the machines are fully working, the 100 millilitre will be removed. Obviously for now, because we can't guarantee what machine you go to, we're still recommending people and obviously advising people to prepare for the 100 millilitre rule, the old rules. But once we get to fully operational on all the machines... That's October 25? That's October 25 in the total airport context. So people can then start bringing 250 mils or whatever they want through in their hand luggage, and there'll be no issue with that. Yeah. Okay, good. Again, just in terms of the flight paths, I just want to touch very briefly on, you guys, you said you devolved the responsibility for the flight paths to AirNav and the IAA, or is it your responsibility or is it AirNav's responsibility? I mean, like, the plane takes off the runway is yours, plane takes off, aircraft is now in the air. Is it still your aircraft? Is it AirNav's aircraft? Is it AirNav telling them to turn left or turn right? Is it you guys telling AirNav they can turn left or turn right, or what?
That's air traffic control, but flight paths are the responsibility of the airport operator, which is us. So if we're responsible for saying to AirNav, help us run the flight paths. Flight path design and promulgation is our responsibility, and we involve them in that. So we're responsible for the design of the flight paths. The implementation of the flight paths then on a daily basis will be air traffic control. But we see it as our responsibility, and finding an improvement is our responsibility that we'll do in consultation with AirNav, with IA, and as Gary has said, with other groups as well, if we think there's a better flight path out there.
So these flight paths that are flying over areas that weren't never intended to be flown over, why is that the case?
Well, so I think as Kenny referenced, there was a lot of consultation done going back to 2016, where I think it was first identified that there would need to be a divergence between the two runways. At that point in time, there was indicative scenarios and modelling done. And look, what's happening today is more or less aligned to what those models showed. So I don't think that there's a whole new area. Yes, when we opened first, you'll remember that we did find that they did fly over areas that maybe weren't in that modelling, and we quickly worked with our partners to rectify that, put our hands up, and we've rectified that since. So what you find now is that they're flying more or less over as per what was consulted and what was included in the relevant action.
So why do we keep getting piles and piles of emails telling us of people being flown over that they were never expected to be flown over?
Look, I think piles and piles of emails and what actually is happening can sometimes be different things. We've got the monitoring. We know, look, are there people looking up and seeing flights saying, I didn't think that was going to happen? Yes, there are. But we think it's in line and it's compliant with what was consulted in 2016. I think looking up and seeing planes is one thing. Noise is the more real thing. And that's where it can be at decibel levels where you just say, yeah, that's hard to be in that kitchen. That's hard to be in that garden. For us, that's the most important issue. And that's where the buyout, the insulation and everything else comes into play, guided by ANCA in terms of where the noise is at 63 to insulate, 69 to buy out, that we need to manage it.
And just finally then, you may have heard that Michael Leary last week was kind of saying you can open car parks, you can open fields, you can put down a bit of gravel, you can do anything you like, because they're temporary. What's your, in terms of car parking, just give us an idea how bad it may be or how tight it may be. Clearly it's not as expensive as people may think, or people are willing to pay the price. But
look, it takes managing, and we're good at managing it, but I don't think it's that big a drama because people have heeded the advice and they're booking early. But most importantly, people are doing what you've described, and 34% of people are saying, I don't want to take the car to the airport, I'll take the air coach or another bus. 34% of all the passengers coming by bus is absolutely music to our ears.
What was that? So what was that 2 years ago? 2 years ago.
2 years ago would have been less than 30%. If you go back to 2000, most importantly, if you go back to 2005 and 6, when the cap was put in place, it would have been less than 5%. Okay. So I think it's great that people are choosing to take the bus. That's taking some pressure off the car parks. We manage car parks well. We've got over twice the car park spaces per passenger than Heathrow has, for example, and it's great that people have heeded the advice, so it won't be carnage. Look, if you want to get a short-term car park space this weekend, we're sold out, but if you still want to, if you're going away on that classic 1 week or 2 week holiday and you want to get a long-term car park space, go on the website and you'll be able to book and you'll be able to find one. So it's not that big an issue. We'll continue to do a good job. We'd like more car park spaces, but most of all, we'd like more people to take the bus to the airport.
Okay. Thanks for that. I could go on, but I'm not going to give time to other people. Deputy Kenny, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for your presentation. I suppose some of the issues have been dealt with, but just to go back to the car parking spaces, the deal you had done, which didn't work out, what is the prospect of getting a lease agreement on that? Or is there any progress in respect of that, which would relieve the immediate situation which is there at the moment?
So, look, we CCPC determined that we weren't able to buy the Quick Park site. The Quick Park site, just to remind everybody, would give us an additional 6,000 spaces. They're also the best 6,000 spaces that exist. I think it was a great shame that last summer we had issues with car parking and people were anxious more than we had issues, and we weren't able to operate those spaces. Since the CCPC decision, we have engaged with the owner of the Quick Park site. I've met with the owner myself to say, could we do a deal to operate it for 2 months? We were close to getting a deal done, but they've withdrawn from that process. So I can't say more than that. I mean, you could ask them why that was, but we wanted to be able to operate it, and our understanding was legally we could. on a short-term basis, just for July and August, and then we'd be gone in September, just to be able to not make money, but ultimately just say to passengers, you can worry less because we've got 6,000 additional spaces. But I don't think now that process will go forward because the vendor, I understand, is withdrawn because they may not be able to sell. They may not be able to let us do it.
That's just a legal problem they have with anyone, or just with yourselves?
My understanding is with anybody, not just ourselves, because if we were doing it, obviously we would follow the law. The law has determined by the CCPC you cannot own it. We're saying we don't want to own it anymore. We think that was the wrong decision, but we just wanted to operate it for 2 months just to provide passengers with more choice, take away that anxiety about car parking. But I think ultimately it's now up to the vendor to see what they do next. I know they're actively still looking to sell it. I hope they do, because there's nothing worse than looking out and saying, you know, hearing about people being anxious about car parking, and then you see tumbleweed going across 6,000 spaces and what's the best car park in the whole campus. We just wanted to operate it for the summer, but we'll now move on and just run the 20,000 spaces that we have.
Yes, regrettable to say the least. In regard to you mentioned that 35% or more of people are using the bus for the airport. Certainly that works for some people, but for an awful lot of people, you know, the option isn't there. And in respect of how we can get, because it's the only airport of an international airport on the island that doesn't have, you know, we've no rail, we have, you know, the bus is fine, but it doesn't suit an awful lot of people. And in respect of that, and I know the metro is something that we certainly need to see happen, and it will take time. What time scale, what engagement has there been? Where are we going on all of that? Because it is one of the major issues that people have out there.
Look, I think the sooner the better, and the more variety of transportation options to and from the airport, the better. I think we've all flown to international airports around the world where you could say, well, I wish we had all that. So look, we are ready for the metro coming to Dublin Airport. We've got the station ready, and we've got designs for what will be the metro station at Dublin Airport, right beside the church, ready to go. I saw recently that there were plans for the DART to go from Clongriffin to the airport, and that could be done sooner. We welcome that. I would say do both. I wouldn't pause the metro to think about the DART. I would do both. There are more things can happen with, I was in LaGuardia Airport recently, and if you look at the amount of ride sharing that's happening with Uber out of LaGuardia, they've really come up with a unique solution there, which I think is really, really interesting. And look, for me, ultimately, a single person travelling in their own car or in a taxi is absolutely wasted opportunity. We need to get more people using public transportation. We need to get more bums and taxi seats and look at things like ride sharing. But we welcome the metro. We're ready for it. We welcome the DART coming to the airport. That would be really, really good. And all those options that will just give people more choice and ultimately get more people on public transport than taking their own car to the airport.
In the issue of choice again, in relation to Cork and indeed other airports, I suppose more regional airports, what more can be done? Because I feel that there is, and I understand, you know, you have one major airport in the country. It's the one which has the most flights, which gets the most traffic. Obviously, it's where the carriers want to be moving from and to, and all of that. But we have the resources of the other airports. Cork is here with us today, and indeed Shannon, and indeed Knock as well, where we have capacity there. We don't need to build anymore. We don't need huge investment to increase the volume of passengers that can use those airports. What is the obstacle, the block, the difficulty in overcoming that?
No obstacle, no block. You can't dictate to an airline where to go. So you can't dictate. You can incentivise. So from a Cork perspective, we have great relationships with our airlines, with Ryanair, with Aer Lingus and all the others. We meet them frequently. We will be offering enhanced incentives for the next 2.5 years to move traffic that is taken specifically out of Dublin to Cork. So we'll be incentivising it financially, but you must take it out of Dublin to move it to Cork. Because obviously we have to make money. We're self-financing. We get nothing from the government. But especially targeting moved traffic, we'll be offering incentives to that. That's going to our board this Friday for approval. But we can't dictate, as even Mr. O'Leary will say, they make the decision where to put the aircraft. I suppose the other point there is the airlines are now nervous that if they start moving aircraft around, that they will prove that the cap was right in the first instance. So they're more inclined to move the aircraft abroad to prove that there should be a free market. So we've created a scarcity thing that they want to stay in Dublin because they're fearful of moving it, they'll never get it back. So there's a bit of, sometimes when a policy goes in a certain direction, the opposite happens. But we will be financially incentivising routes to move from Dublin to Cork and see will the incentives work.
Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, I'll just add on top of that. Look, I think we are taking a total Ireland view. We run 2 airports. I was in Shannon. And look, I used to fly from Shannon a lot. It's a really good campus. I can see things like MRO. I can see things like charters. When Gary had the challenge of the Europa League final and you had lots of late Atalanta and Leverkusen charter flights wanting to come in, we would be saying go to Cork, go to Shannon, look at those other airports if you can't get in, because we will be at a point. So I think for Shannon charters, I would talk to transatlantic carriers looking to start operating into Ireland and saying, look, you might get slots this winter or summer but not keep them. Definitely talk to Shannon, because Shannon has pre-clearance, which is a great advantage for any airport. You know, you get airports like Manchester looking at that going, wow, Dublin has it and Shannon has it. That's a really, really good differentiator. So we will take a total Ireland view. We will definitely be incentivising airlines to go to Cork. I think Cork, as Neil said, is, you know, big and busy in the summer, but we want to make it busier in the winter and have European connectivity that's really good all year round. And I think Shannon has some unique opportunity as well. And look, ultimately, this is about all airports moving forward, which we support.
Are there any issues in Cork or the other airports? Sorry, is there any issues in the other airports in regard to noise or issues there? That, well, clearly there is a problem in Dublin, and I respect you say that, you know, it's more or less where it used to be or where it was planned to be, or, you know, set out in the planning. But for an awful lot of the public living in that area, they feel it's a lot less than it is the more, and, you know, that is a problem. And I just wonder, if we were to try and see expansion in other parts of the country, are we going to run into similar positions?
I don't believe so, Deputy. I've worked in Shannon Airport also. I won't speak for Shannon Airport. Shannon, the flight paths come in largely over the Atlantic,
yeah.
So therefore you're coming in over fallow land. In Cork, we have a very good relationship with our neighbours. We're in a rural part, but we're not too far from the city. It does come in over the city. It circles over the sea at Kinsale. We would count on 2 hands the amount of noise complaints we get in a single year. Okay. So we have no issue with noise. We have a very good relationship with our local community. As a matter of fact, we worked with the Airnav Ireland and Ryanair and Aer Lingus in alternative flight paths, which is called continuous descent operations, that reduces the number of circling over areas, and it has been proven a success, and that was completed this year to reduce noise and reduce fuel burn. Yeah.
I'll just add on top, look, Ireland is actually further ahead than most EU countries when it comes to noise in aviation. We think it's a very, very serious issue. Thankfully, the trajectory of travel is that newer aircraft are producing far less noise. That's the MAX aircraft, that's the Neo aircraft. That's good. I think it's really good. We have a regulator. We take it very, very seriously, but Dublin is unique and it's in its location. Look, with Dublin, with the 2 runways, I think it's important because, yeah, some people are looking up seeing aircraft saying, I didn't see them before. But when we had the south runway and we had the crosswind runway at Dublin, and on busy, windy days, aircraft were taking off and going over Santry, Whitehall and Beaumont. If you compare now to then, ultimately there's about half the number of households impacted now than were impacted on those busy, windy days. So some households are saying, yeah, I looked up before and I never saw aircraft, and I see that now, but they're generally at a height. But there are half the number of households that are really impacted by noise of low-flying, taking off aircraft since we've had the 2 runways, and that's a good thing. But we'll continue to focus on noise, do everything we can, and I actually think when I go around Europe, Ireland's actually in a very good place because we take it very, very seriously, and because we're doing things like incentivising airlines like Aer Lingus and Ryanair to have the new Neo and the MAX aircraft, which produce about 40–50% less noise.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Jacobs, thank you, Deputy Kenny. Now, Senator Dooley, go ahead.
Thanks very much, Chairman. Just to welcome Mr. Jacob and his team. You're back before the committee again, and it's good to have you. Just a couple of questions. Just on the second runway, can you give us some idea as to the positive impact that has been in terms of getting planes away early morning and at peak times? Because I still hear from people who use Dublin Airport that there's still some congestion particularly in the early mornings, and how you might be able to get better efficiencies, or do you plan to get better efficiencies there? I assume some of it is connected in with the flight paths, which you talked about for other reasons, but maybe you'd expand on that in a little bit. The next question that I want to just talk a little bit about is the whole Shannon-Cork issue. I'm on record with most of you over time as saying that I disagreed with the independence for Shannon, which was presented as a really positive for the region. In truth, it hasn't been. Notwithstanding the team that are there, Mary Considine and the board have done an amazing job against a very difficult backdrop in coming through COVID, and have really worked hard and have made some major successes. But we're now seeing the culmination of what I predicted back a number of years ago. You've seen Dublin, which effectively has sucked in a lot of the traffic, the growth in traffic over the last number of years, the growth as a result of much of the tourist market, now reaching a point, and it's starting to incentivise people to move back. And your first point to incentivise is Cork, as Mr McCarthy has rightly identified. And why wouldn't you? Because it's within your group. And that's where Shannon now, sadly, is suffering, being on the periphery of the group. I still think, though, there's an opportunity, and I very much welcome, and I know Mary Considine has remained in close contact with Dublin Airport, notwithstanding the separation, to try to ensure that you're not competitors, because truthfully, Shannon is never going to compete with Dublin because of the size and scale that you have. So what more can be done that can assist the growth of Shannon, assist you in terms of, being able to maintain that cap without breaching it, and at the same time, with all of us with the green jersey on, trying to ensure that it's Ireland gets the next few aircraft that Mr O'Leary decides to present, rather than Portugal or Britain or Scotland or wherever. So I'll let you maybe answer those two bits, and then we'll come back to you.
Okay, I'll get Gary to first do the congestion piece, and then myself and Neil will comment on the regional piece and what more can be done for Shannon.
Yeah, thank you. So look, as you know, North Runway opened back in August 2022, and we intentionally had a phased up ramp in the operations because it was in effect a whole redesign of not just the airspace but how we operate our airport. We had a whole recertification of that, and look, as I said earlier on, safety number one priority and all that. And in the early days, we ramped up our hours. We in a gradual basis, we looked at concepts of operations that really drove a new operation, but with safety as the main priority. As we all our users became more familiar with that, we did start to then introduce improvements, and in particular, I suppose, improving the departure intervals and reducing them between flights. One of the challenges at the moment is that obviously the switchover in the North Run becomes available at 7 a.m. in the morning, as you're probably aware, right in the middle of our first wave. So the last aircraft before 7 departs off the southern runway, the next one after 7 off the northern runway as per the current plan and conditions. There was a lot of work done to ensure that transition happened smoothly and that we managed that in conjunction with AirNav and our other stakeholders. And so as we've progressed on, we have seen improvements in overall efficiency of the airfield. This year to date, our on-time performance is significantly improved versus previous years, and we have a working group that meets weekly and then more regularly as required, looking just purely at that first wave, that busy first wave operation. That includes ourselves, obviously AirNav as our key partner in air traffic and in managing aircraft off the runway, but also with the stakeholders. And so everyone's really focused on how well it operates and how it feeds into. There's been work also with Eurocontrol in relation to aircraft that might get slots. We now have a desk in Eurocontrol that we can ring when it's causing congestion in the airport and try to improve the slots that maybe some aircraft can have. It's not always possible, but we're engaged around that. So a really strong focus through our teams in our operations centre, our APOC, in conjunction with our stakeholders, looking at what's coming at us and how we can improve that. But certainly we're getting more efficiency off the North Runway, as you can imagine, with departures and the arrivals on a separate runway, as opposed to mixed mode where you have arrivals, departures and greater segregation between them. So certainly a lot of improvements.
Mr McCarthy.
Okay, I'll just then, and I'll look no better person than Neil because he's been involved in Cork and Shannon Airport, but look, as someone who used to work in an airline, Mary and team have done a really, really good job. You're right, Shannon isn't necessarily competing with Dublin. Dublin is a national hub airport. Shannon's competition is actually Cork, so be careful what Neil says. He mightn't give his best secrets away in terms of how you'd grow.
I have no doubt.
But look, there are things that can happen. Look, pre-clearance is fantastic. Airports come around to Ireland, they go, that's just amazing, and they really want to get it. The Americans aren't going to be giving out that much of it anymore. So it's a unique advantage for Shannon. I was in the States recently talking to airlines saying, well, yeah, look, it's works really, really well for the Deltas and the Americans. So we will DAA, will actively have conversations with the American carriers to say, look, it's great in Shannon, really good airport, you should be thinking about Shannon. That's one thing. Second thing is engineering. Getting an engineering hub at an airport, which Shannon has, and has loads of space on the campus. It has loads of sheds that are there and available. That's a really good way to get the airlines there. That if an airline is basing its engineering there, and Lufthansa are doing that, but getting others to do the same, they'll also just add aircraft there. So that's the second thing I would say. Third one is charters. You know, if you're going from the south part of the country to the classic holidays in Turkey and Greece over the summer months, it's really having a lot of bigger charter operation in the summer months. The fourth one would be incentives. Just have the incentive scheme that's there for the key airlines, which would be Ryanair and Aer Lingus, to say, base more aircraft here, and that's where the competition will come in with Cork.
And are you prepared to work with Mary Considine and the team to look at that? I mean, okay, at some point, Mr. McCarthy will reach capacity. There's only so much he can do unless he wants to expand out into the Cork Harbour.
And we expanding.
They will, but no, I think we are.
You might have a planning issue or two, but anyway.
The last thing then would be the marketing of the Wild Atlantic Way. Look, it's fantastic, and Shannon is a gateway to that. So I think it's making sure that the marketing funds for the Wild Atlantic Way for Americans and Europeans coming in remains there. But I think we are willing to, and we are already working with Mary and team.
Just before Mr. McCarthy comes in, has there, and it goes back to the parking issue, it goes back to your cap, has anybody looked at the idea of having a park and ride for the airport in St. Ace or somewhere similar on the Western Road? I'm always conscious when I talk to my mother, who trained as a nurse in the UK, so in her early days travelling to the UK, they checked in somewhere on O'Connell Street, you know, and they were taken by a bus to the airport. Like, if you want to solve the problem, you've got to be a little bit more imaginative than just looking at the car park capacity that's either in close proximity to the airfield or on the airfield. It seems to me that you could be looking at some facilities further out, any of the motorways or off the M50 that might provide. You could do it perhaps more cheaply, but at least get the traffic away and onto buses.
No, that's a great idea. We are actively looking at more park and ride and how that can be done, and people become aware of it as an option. On the other one that you mentioned, like checking in for a flight on O'Connell Street, I love that one. I mean, we operate Red Sea Airport. When you're departing from Red Sea Airport, you actually check in for your flight at the hotel you're leaving from. Now it's a resort.
It used to be the case in Oslo. I remember I was there a very long time ago. You checked in one of the SAS hotels. They took your bags. They gave you a boarding pass, and away you went.
And I really like that one. I think that will become part of aviation in the future, that, you know, the model of that you have to rock up to a check-in desk, put the big bags in, and that's it. It's not the only way to do it with modern technology, and a few other airports in Germany are doing downtown check-in as a business product, but I think that's a really interesting one.
Back to the future.
Back to the future.
Thank you.
Yeah, as Senator Dooley knows, there's two seasons in aviation. There's summer, which is April to October, and there's winter, which is October to April. So this summer is cooked. It's on sale, so the schedules are done. So, you know, there's nothing we can do. This winter is largely on sale as well. So the winter is set. So what's up for grabs is really summer 25. So summer 25, the sort of the marketing season will start shortly, Senator Dooley. Dublin will not cross-subsidise us, nor should it, in offering incentives to airlines to move. We have our own P&L. Dublin has a regulated P&L and can cross-subsidise us. So really, ourselves and Shannon to get ready with decent incentives, starting now, running to October for next summer. So the game is on. The second piece, just very quickly, is how the regulator reduces the slots. Probably, to be determined, probably won't say given routes stop. We'll say no new routes, and we'll then say to all existing airlines, lose maybe 4% of your thing. So it won't be defined routes that are for grabs. It'll be capacity in various forms. So Shannon has a healthy P&L. It's published there. Needs to be sharpening its incentives and getting ready for next summer.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Senator Dooley. Now, Deputy Farrell, go ahead.
Thanks very much, Chairman. Good afternoon. Thanks very much for coming before us. Niall, thanks very much. I have visited Cork. I have flown out of Cork a few times, the lovely little airport, I must say, and I couldn't believe how quickly I got through it, both directions. on the couple of occasions I visited. So I must compliment you. It is a lovely airport. And not to be critical of Dublin, Dublin has vastly improved on what it was a number of decades ago. My first flight on my own out of Dublin was in 1993, sorry. And it's a different planet in comparison to what it was. I just want to start off with a couple of quick queries on statements that you've made, Mr. Jacobs. Why did the DA insulate dozens of homes due west of the North Runway?
I'd need to know exactly where you're talking about.
Exactly due west.
Exactly.
Straight out.
Due west of the North Runway. Okay, I'm going to ask Gary, because Gary would have been there at the time. Do you know why we would have insulated those ones?
Well, sorry, obviously the installation of houses is done on the criteria as agreed, and so again without specifics, but I think that they fell within the contours of that modelling that we referenced back in 2016, and would have become applicable for that.
So when we were viewing what was happening from August 22. Lots of people asked that question: why did the DAA insulate all these homes if the predominant flight path was not over those homes? And now we are 22 months later, and we have, by your own reckoning, Mr. Jacobs, 660 homes that haven't been insulated but who are likely to require insulation, i.e. they're on the flight path and they're near the runway. They're near the airfield, I should say. I'm just wondering, why are we 22 months later waiting for 660 homes to be insulated?
Well, okay.
So what is stopping you from insulating those
Nothing
homes?
is stopping us. What's stopping us from insulating more homes? We want to insulate more homes even outside of the relevant action. There's 660 homes contained as part of the relevant action that we want to insulate. That would be the choice of those people to see, do they want to insulate? But I think, and I hope the vast majority will say yes. We'd need to understand the exact homes that you mentioned to say why they were insulated. But ultimately, insulation is part of the overall noise programme. The noise programme is regulated by...
There's nothing stopping you, Mr. Jacobs, so with respect. Why aren't you insulating?
That's a very good question, and we actually are saying, okay, once the relevant action is granted, because we need that to be granted for us to get on with it, we're then not going to wait and say, let's now take a bit of time to do that. So we have been working in the past months to say we want to get ahead of this, so once relevant action is granted, we will get on. So if you take those 600...
Mr. Jacobs, I want you to be, quote unquote, a good neighbour.
Yeah.
And you've said that in my presence on a number of occasions. I'd like you to be that good neighbour. And my point is, you don't need anybody to tell you you need to insulate 660 homes, because you've said it yourself.
Yep.
So my point, and it doesn't require an answer, is please get on with it.
Yeah. If I can just, there's four estates within the 660 that we've already sized and said, right, that's going to be the most popular house within the 660. That will allow us to get on with us really fast once the relevant action is granted.
No, that's fine. Maybe if there's a second round, we can explore that a little more. You answered Deputy Crowe when he asked rather if you were in breach of any other planning conditions. You said no. Would you like to revisit that answer?
No, I have the same answer.
So the Planning Authority, Fingal County Council, who issued an enforcement notice saying that you breached the nighttime cap, that's not a breach?
And that's a topic that we're not going to...
No, I know, you're before the courts on the 24th,
but
only a few days.
I have the same answer. We do not think we are in breach of any other...
But you'll understand, Mr. Jacobs, we're not standing on the head of a pin. The pin is over there. You've been found by a planning authority to have breached a planning condition associated with your operations. It is a question in law, and you are entitled to challenge it, and you may be vindicated. But in the interim, you are in breach of one of your planning conditions according to the law of the land. Full stop.
And we have a different view. We do not think we are in breach.
Your opinion is important.
That's our legal opinion.
In the context of the planning authority making a decision, that's a fact. You don't get to play with the facts. You can challenge it, and if you get a judge, in this case Judge Humphreys, to make a decision to vindicate your position, then absolutely you can answer that question.
But Deputy, you then know the facts change. So look, they have issued an enforcement.
Yes, by the judiciary, not by you.
If I can finish, we are challenging that enforcement, and a judge will decide in the end. So I think it becomes the facts when a judge decides.
Mr. Jacobs, it's not an opinion. It's not something that you can challenge. The answer to Deputy Crowe's question was answered inappropriately, and that's a fact.
And I disagree with that. That's your point of view, and I disagree with that. And a judge will decide in the end.
Yeah, but in the interim, you're still in breach.
And we don't think we are.
Again, I would state it's not a matter for your opinion. It's a fact that the planning authority, Fingal County Council, have found you in breach, Mr. Jacobs. So it's not a question of whether you are or you aren't. The judiciary can make their decision later, but today you are in breach of a planning condition. So I wanted to go very briefly to the fact that you've said on a number of occasions, both before the committee, on television, on radio and here, that the homes are overflown unexpectedly. We know that you've employed a contractor to design a flight path for you, as you're perfectly entitled to do. Your chosen contractor was Airnav, or IA at the time, but Airnav now. Could you employ anybody else with the relevant expertise to do the assessment that you're talking about, to determine whether flight paths could be changed to both improve your capacity to get planes on into the airport and out of the airport, while impacting the least number of people possible? Because I accept entirely the point you're making, Mr. McLean, about moving a flight path might not benefit everybody, but so
design and operating a flight paths are two different things. The design, I'll get Gary to comment on, but Airnav operate the flight paths through aircraft control. But the design, yes, we can, but I'll get Gary to add more comment.
Yeah, and just to clarify, so I said earlier on that we would employ or contract with somebody to do that airspace review. That won't be Airnav. They'll be a partner or stakeholder within the process. They won't be the contracting entity that will look at.
I'm happy to hear that. I'm happy to hear that, Mr. McLean. My question really relates to timing. So you're 22 months in operation on the new runway, and really there's a little bit of an issue in the sense that if you're saying it's going to take you another 6 months or thereabouts to get to a point where you might be able to say yes, there is another potential flight path that we could use that reduces the number of people that were overflown, or no, there isn't. You'll understand that if you're using a third-party contractor, the busyness that you have at the airport, which I entirely accept, and the fact that you're not going to be planning it anyway, is there any way that we can speed up this process?
Look, 6 months is very, very challenging as it is. It's the summer season. You can't, from a safety point of view, say to airlines, right, guys, we're now changing the flight paths in a short period.
Forgive me. My question is, can this contractor that you've hired, can they not speed up the process to bring a proposal to you for you to say, Janie Mac, that works? We can actually reduce our impact here.
Look, we'll push them that they come to us as fast as we can. Our team will then analyse and say, how practical is this? Can this be implemented? So, we absolutely give a very strong undertaking that we will push them as fast as possible to see what's realistic and what's implementable. Look, we're not trying to go slow on this. If there's a better flight path out there, we want to find it if it can take noise away, and we want to implement it as quickly as possible within what's possible, given it's a complicated airspace above and below. It's a complicated airfield. There's many different things at play, and safety comes first, and then what's practically implementable from an ATC point of view, because the design of a flight path is one thing. You then give it to Airnav and say that's what we want to operate, and to the airlines. And you'll have lots of airlines have different points of view. Airnav a particular point of view, but safety is what comes first.
Okay. No, and I thank you for the answer, Chairman. I'll rattle off 3 quick questions, and then I'll end. I do.
You're over time already, but go ahead.
You're projecting, I think you're projected already that you're 6% above your profile from 2023. I would find it very hard to understand how you're going to be able to manage the 32 million credibly. I respect the fact that you're trying, but you're already 6% over profile. So, will the IAA ruling in regards to the winter schedule, that mitigate, and notwithstanding anything that might occur with Aer Lingus? Your complaint management system, my understanding is that it's been up and down a little bit of late. Would you be able to comment on that? Or any improvements to be made to that? Because it has been reported to me within my constituency and Meath that it's been up and down a little bit of late. And then the charge made by Ryanair, which hasn't really been addressed here, that that certain infrastructural changes, subject to planning permission, of course, through Fingal County Council, are purely there to increase your charges. Would you like to respond to that? Because I don't think you have.
Okay, on those four things, look, will the IA decision help this winter? Yes, it will. Will it help more of 2025 because we'll have a full 12 months? Yes, it will help even more. On the 6%, I think we're slightly less than 6% in terms of we're tracking ahead, but look, we're worried. We're absolutely worried, and we're not banking on the Aer Lingus strike being something that happens and takes a long time to take a chunk of passengers out. So we're worried that we may be forced into a breach. I think everybody has now responded. The IA have issued their decision. That's a good thing. The complaints management system, I'd have to take a look at to see, but I haven't heard anything myself that it's an issue. On the Ryanair charges last week, I think you mean the underpass that they referred to in terms of their
charge. That was Mr. O'Leary's charge. Yeah.
Yeah, and look, they don't like the underpass. We like the underpass. I can't see, as I said, I can't see a Dublin airport operating above 40 million without the underpass. And I actually think Ryanair at some point in time would say, do you know what? We're fans of the underpass. Ryanair didn't like T2. They don't like a lot of the aspects of infrastructure. And I love Ryanair. They're great at buying airlines, but they don't run airports. That's what we do. And always remember, we've got 43 airline customers, and we've got a designer for all 43. Ryanair are the most efficient. They're the most simple. We've also got airlines that are saying to us, we want a 5-star service because we're charging people first class and business class tickets to go to the Middle East and the States. So you have to build an airport for all. The underpass, we need to move vehicles safely from the east side to the west side and back in the airfield. That will be fuel trucks, that will be goods, that will be cargo. Ultimately, at some point in time, it will be passengers. And I think Aer Lingus and Ryanair will welcome it because they see it getting other operations out of their way over the west side of the airfield.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jacob. Thank you, Deputy Farrell. And I'm now going to bring in Deputy Smith. Go ahead.
Thank you, everyone. Mr. Jacobs, on the passenger cap, you're already in breach of the passenger cap, according to the Department of Transport figures, 33.5 million people. Now, in our last meeting, you'll say that that includes transit passengers. You don't include that in your calculations, even though everyone else does on board Penal and other airports. But you've said today that you'll be forced into breaching the cap. So if being 1.5 million people over the cap now is not in breach of the cap, according to yourself, what figure, according to yourself, is a breach of the 32 million cap?
Of the 32 million cap for me is a number net of transit, so excluding transits because those passengers don't come in.
How many transits are there? Because
transits last year were about 400,000 last year. This year they're significantly less, close to zero.
You're still over a million over the cap last year if you're including 400,000 transit. A million over the cap. So you're in breach.
Okay, can I finish?
Yeah.
Okay, so last year was 31.9 net of transits and only single counting transfers. I think everybody needs to remember the cap is about road congestion, cars coming to and from the airport. In theory, if every single passenger came on a bus, right, that's no car coming to Dublin Airport. Car parks all empty. The cap still exists. Okay, so the cap for me is a blunt and it's now an out-of-date instrument because 34% of passengers are coming on the bus and the cap is based on cars coming to and from the airport. That's why we think it's right and sensible to exclude transit passengers because that's a plane landing, nobody getting off the plane, nobody getting in a car and taking off, and we are single counting every single transfer. But what we're not doing, if you fly Donegal to Dublin, Dublin to JFK, we're saying that's one passenger. They didn't come by car, so we think it's a sensible calculation. A lot of the airlines are arguing that all of transfer passengers should be excluded. We don't, most importantly, we don't control the passenger number. I can't stop. If I said to airlines, do not apply for a slot, I'd be breaking the law. So airlines apply for slots, that's what drives the passenger number.
But even the Department of Transport figures for last year, if you take your transit passengers, it's not 31.9 million. That you just said is 500,000 transit passengers?
No, if you remove transit passengers and you only single count transfer passengers, last year was 31.9 million passengers net.
And that's 500,000 odd transit passengers.
That's about 400,000
but that's still, if it's 400,000, that's still over 33 million according to Department of Transport figures. So we're in breach. The cap is being breached, and that's the reality of it. So just. On the noise mitigate, on the planning application that went in before Christmas last year to raise the cap to 40 million, you've mentioned the tunnel being needed in order for the airport to be at 45 million capacity. You mentioned the 50 million number already today. You put in an application to raise the cap to 40 million by 2030, but that's included in a massive infrastructural application, the biggest Fingal County Council have ever seen, ever received. You said today that you could put in an operational planning application to raise the cap only. You're looking at that. like, you're all over the shop with your planning applications. Like, why didn't you introduce? Why didn't you just put in a planning application to raise the cap? With no infrastructure attached to it? Why didn't you just put in operational?
Look, I don't think we're all over the shop. We're trying to fix things going forward, and then we want to get further ahead again. So,
you're 7 months on from putting in the biggest planning application in the history of Fingal County Council, and you're saying to us today that you might now consider an operational only cap increase planning application. Like, that's...
Because it's the right thing to do. Because it's the
Why did you do that last year?
We didn't do that. Look, we put in an infrastructure application last December, and I wish we had done it sooner. That is us building capacity, and that's lifting the cap. If that gets granted, the cap gets removed, we can operate to a higher number, and we want to build things to bring down emissions, and we want to build things to be able to operate to a higher number. What we've learned since then is that there's great demand from the airlines, and we may put in this operational application because it's the right thing to do. Why is it the right thing to do? Because if we don't do it, there'll be a loss of connectivity for Ireland, jobs will go, and that's what we want to protect. We don't want other airports to take our passengers, take airlines from us. We want to be able to grow, and that's the most important thing. We're not all over the shop. We're being very pragmatic. We wish planning would go faster in Ireland. We wish we had put in an infrastructure application sooner. And we now won't be caught out again. We want to get all our planning in order so that we can grow Dublin Airport, Cork Airport to meet the transport demands of the population.
Okay, you're probably the most experienced organisation in Fingal for planning applications over the years, so it beggars belief that you would have put that planning application in and now are considering an operational one. On the noise, okay, given that planning application as it's gone in, in response to a parliamentary question and direct contact to myself, you are exploring an earth berm at the north boundary of the north runway. That is a on-the-ground noise mitigation measure. What's the current status of that? Why are we so far behind on that? Why wasn't that included in the planning application, given the calls for that in areas of South Swords like Bereava and Ridgewood and River Valley? And if you could speak to that for a moment.
Yeah, I don't think earth berms require planning, and that's why it wouldn't have been in it. They're something that can mitigate noise. It depends. There's many factors to it, and it's not the simple thing of build a mound and the noise will go away. But we're actively looking at earth berms as part of the overall noise programme that we will have. They'll work in certain places, and we have earth berms in place. We will look at further ones and saying how is that evolving as an area that we can implement them if we think it will take away noise.
Okay. In terms of the placement of noise monitors and air pollution monitors, what's your level of engagement either with the EPA or Fingal County Council in relation to the placement of those? And can we get more of those placed in areas such as South Swords and in the areas like in St. Margaret's and that the residents are calling for?
Yeah, we absolutely can. I mean, we were in Fingal and they said, can you put one in a specific part of Bereava, which we did. We've got 20 permanent and temporary ones. We'll take the view of Fingal. We'll take the view of Anca in terms of where the best places to put them. The temporary ones are good because you can move them around, and I think it gives you the data, and then you can say to the community, this is where noise actually was, and then we want to have more of those, possibly move them around so that people do get the reassurance. We all get the data in terms of where the noise levels are at, and if we go from 20 to 30, we're absolutely fine with that.
Okay. Last week we had Michael O'Leary in what was, I suppose, entertaining maybe for some people watching in, but I found it quite unproductive in terms of actually getting any real detail. But he was, excoriating in his criticism of the management of DAA over many years. Again, that's not a surprise. But just in preparation for that, obviously you have a history in terms of Ryanair, and I have to ask, just in the public interest, one of the executive, according to the annual report, a lot of executive compensation would have been in the form of Ryanair stock. Yeah. Do you still hold any Ryanair stock now that you're chief executive of the DAA, or have you ever, or if you did, have you involved yourself with that? No,
I own Ryanair. Look, every year I have to declare any stock I own. I own stock in 12 airlines, including Ryanair, who operate at Dublin Airport. Okay,
and that's not, you don't believe that's a conflict of interest or anything like that?
Given it's 12 different airlines who are all customers at Dublin Airport, I don't think it's a conflict. I've always been involved in aviation. I've always been an investor in aviation. I think owning 12, not owning one or two in particular, I don't think is a conflict.
Okay. Might come in for a second round, Chair.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Deputy Smith. Now, who's still here? I'm conscious we've just gone to a vote. So I might just do a couple of brief questions and then ask somebody to take the chair, because I have about 6 or 7 minutes before I have to get up there. You mentioned a lot of other airports don't have a cap. Why are we going to a 40 million cap? Why are we going to any cap?
That's a great question, and ultimately we want to move away from passenger caps. You know, ultimately you want to provide the connectivity that Ireland needs. I think noise quotas, movement caps are better ways. Passenger caps are an archaic way. So I hope the 40 million infrastructure application that we applied for is the last one with a specific passenger number attached to it. We would
But
like
you
to
applied for a cap, did you?
No.
So where did the 40 million come from?
The 40 million is a number of passengers that would be connected. Look, that we've looking to get the cap removed, build infrastructure to a degree that we would be able to operate to 40 million. We can do that already. As I said, if you take
my point. So if you can actually, I mean, if there was no cap, you could probably operate the current building and the current terminal, maybe extending the hours a little bit to closer to midnight or whatever, moving some of the peak to there are downtimes in an afternoon or whatever. You could probably up to 37 or 8 million today
or higher. So we want to move off the language of a passenger cap.
You're saying there's 40 million cap. Where does this figure come from? I mean, did you write it into documentation or did?
No, we don't. We haven't written that into the documentation. We've applied.
So why are we all talking about 40 million?
I think we've just been doing that for a number of years because we've talked about getting to a number like that. But ultimately, the infrastructure application is lift the cap of 32, allow us to build infrastructure that allows us to grow. We want to move off the 40 million number. We want to move off talking about a passenger count. We want to talk about aircraft movements, a noise quota to help manage noise. Because ultimately, it's not about the passenger number itself is not the most typical way to look at the size of an airport.
I mean, I think personally, I want Shannon to grow. I want Cork to grow. I don't particularly want every single person in Ireland flying to Dublin Airport. If half them weren't there, it would probably make my experience a more pleasant one when I am going to Dublin Airport. But I think, I would worry that the 40 million cap, if you're applying for and then saying we will have 40 million, by the time you get it and plan it and build it, your numbers will be at 40 million, and you'll be going and back in for 60, going, why did we ask for 60 in the first place?
Yeah, and look, and we want to get
and again, why ask for 60? Why just not have a cap?
Yeah, and that's ultimately what we want. We want to have the flexibility to meet the needs of the country. That means moving off a specific passenger number. I think, look, Mr. Chairman, airlines, airports all talk about a passenger number because it's kind of the competitive league table on where you sit in terms of size, but it's better to move off that as a way of judging and measuring the size of an airport. But ultimately, it's not the way we want to have it going forward. We want to be able to operate to the number that matches supply and demand, because that's going to be great for jobs, that's going to be great for the economy.
In terms of this planning application, when do you think I know planning is as long as a piece of string, but when do you expect that Fingal will say yay or nay, and you can start putting measures in place to, I know you could say operate 37. If they say, I mean, when they grant the planning, that doesn't mean you can operate to 37 or 8 million and the cap's gone. It's only when you build all this infrastructure, in theory.
Well, with the plan, when Fingal granted, the cap will be lifted and we'll be able to operate to a bigger number before we build.
Okay. Yeah. So that's what you're saying. The minute Fingal say, you've given you planning permission to do more, you can now start operating to 35, 36 million based on the existing building. And when do you think you're going to get the planning from Fingal?
I hope that I hope we get the planning from Fingal within months. It'll obviously be appealed and it'll go to An Bord Pleanála, and then we'll have a process that I think ultimately from us putting it into An Bord Pleanála determining, I hope will take 2 years. Once the cap gets lifted, and that ultimately I think will be an An Bord Pleanála decision, we'll then be able to operate to a bigger number while building things to have a more sustainable airport. Very importantly, as I've said, like if you take 120,000 pax last Sunday, that applied over the course of the year, we already can operate and ensure that we can operate safely and efficiently to about 40 million a year, because 120,000 passengers last Sunday and they all got through security in the right time. Standards are really, really good. So we're already able to do that, and the demand is already there.
Okay, thank you for that. Just very briefly, Michael Leary seemed to say that the environmental scheme is discouraging him from using the MAX rather than the existing one. Why would your scheme, why would he say that? Why would you, surely the MAX is a more environmentally friendly plane than the previous model. Does your scheme not incentivise him to use the MAX here?
We think it does, and it incentivises airlines like
you think it does, but he doesn't think it does. So why does he disagree with your opinion?
And look, and Michael and Ryanair are very good at disagreeing. It's a great thing that Ryanair do everywhere. But I would say other airlines are very happy with the discount scheme. Ultimately, look, what's most important here is we want to say to airlines.
It's not so much the discount scheme; it's the environmental scheme, the one that encourages you to bring the quieter, newer.
And we'll give you a discount if you do that. So we're giving a 25% discount to the airlines airlines that replace older aircraft with newer aircraft. That is something that is the right direction of travel to
So
get
based on
newer
everything
aircraft.
I know about the Ryanair business model, why wouldn't you want to pay 25% less?
I don't know. Look, they may want the discount for all types of aircraft. We only want to apply the discount to those aircraft that we know are newer, greener, quieter aircraft.
Okay, I mean, other people touched on the tunnel, so if I do get back, again, I keep finding PowerPoints that aren't working. Maybe I'm just really unlucky, but maybe somebody needs to review all the PowerPoints. I know they can get broken today, and they were fixed yesterday. They're not broken today, but they just on maybe the USB ports just maybe have a review of those.
So look, we did a complete audit of that just in advance of summer as part of our planning. Like we have, and just to be, almost I'd say 600 PowerPoints available to the passengers across the terminals. The last audit.
In the context of 100,000 passengers, that may not be that many. Sorry. Yeah, I'm going to ask you to go in the chair.
So, and we've introduced new, as I mentioned in my presentation as well. So we found at that point there was about 10% of them that, the USB port wasn't working. So we've replaced them and programmed to replace them as well. But look, there are things where passengers are plugging in their phones. There's always going to be faults with that, and we're always monitoring to ensure.
Thanks for all you do, and we look forward to seeing you again. I may not be back in time for the 3:30 finishing of this meeting, so if I do, I do. If I don't, we have to vote, and maybe a few votes. Okay. So thank you very much. If it's agreeable that the meeting will agree Deputy Smith to take over? Yeah, okay. Thank you all. Thank you. Take a note.
If you'd like to. 5 minutes up today, or 15 minutes? 15 minutes left?
Yeah, we've 15 minutes or 5, 5,
Sorry,
5.
yeah.
That's okay. Yeah.
Great. Thanks. So if I can cover the complaint system, and I want to talk about PFAS as well. So just the complaint system, first of all. Do you know how often the web track noise complaint system is down, inaccessible? It's reported to us that it's down a lot, and it prevents residents from reporting to it. It's also identified that emails are not accepted. It can only log one complaint at a time. WebTrack, there is an hour delay in relation to it. So specifically in relation to WebTrack, and then also the principle of the DAA investigating its own complaints. Is that a system that you have designed, that the regulator has designed? Is it common within the industry? And I think it's obvious that it's not ideal. Thanks.
On the system, look, we want it up and running the whole time. I'm not aware, but I will take away and ask the team to say, what is the average downtime and come back. I do get a fortnightly update on the number of complaints that have come through. We have implemented something that will stop kind of bot complaints, so something that's not a person tapping away putting a complaint, but something that's an automated piece of software generating 1,000 complaints or just replicating 1,000 complaints. That's something we want to stop because it just clogs up the system. But I will check and see what the downtime is. But our commitment is we want to look at it. I'm getting a report on it, and we want it to be the source that people trust that we do use.
And in terms of it not being independent, it being of yourselves, is that standard practice?
That would be standard. Look, there's a noise regulator on the complaints. It would be standard that airports have a system like this, and it's very similar to what other airports would use around the world.
And if there was a proposal to redesign that, to make it independent, that would come from who? The regulator?
I think it would probably come from ANCA, the noise regulator, if there was a
noise
proposal to do
regulator,
that.
or the IAA, or
no, I think it would be more ANCA than the IA space.
Yeah. Okay. Can I ask in relation to PFAS? Because I'm my party's environmental spokesperson. Just and you reference your own environmental plans. It is the case that there was it was reported PFAS on site in 2016 and was buried on site and reported. Is this, and of course, Dublin Airport sits within a wider environment in Dublin, and SPAs and SACs impact on water bodies. How is PFAS managed on site, and who's the responsible authority? Is it yourselves? Is it the EPA? How is that overseen? And it doesn't help that people read in German publications that PFAS has been managed in the environs of Dublin Airport and not within statutory authorities.
Well, the EPA are the authority who are responsible, for PFAS and all chemicals like that. There's 97 PFAS sites in Ireland. I think it's important that everybody remembers that. I think we've worked closely with the EPA since we found trace elements of PFAS, and we have removed them. We have removed them from Dublin. So I think we've gotten ahead of this, and we've done this very, very well in close conjunction with the EPA, with Fingal, and everybody to remove PFAS. There is PFAS in the trace levels of PFAS in drinking water levels, but that's because it's provided by Uisce Éireann. That's the same for anyone living in Dublin 4, living in Dublin 18, living in any part of Dublin. But I'm comfortable. I think we've a really, really good plan on identifying and removing the PFAS levels in close conjunction with the EPA, who are the competent authority on it.
And is that a publicly available plan?
I think it is, yeah. We've published it on our website, what we've found, what we've done with it, and I think it's being held up as very, very transparent, very, very proactive in terms of what we've done as one of the 97 sites in the country with PFAS.
Okay, thanks. John.
Thank you.
5 minutes.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Chairman. Mr. McLean, the noise mitigation, excuse me, the noise mitigation, the berm. It's probably 18 months ago I wrote in relation to, I think there's one in the Netherlands, which is a series of undulating berms. They are really precise, mathematically worked out, and they, as a result, break up sound waves. And they have been proven to be extremely successful, rather than one large berm or something like that to try and block the view, which also blocks the sound waves, but not as well as these undulating berms. Could you give us your view on that, and whether this berm that you mentioned earlier is something that is, being looked at from that perspective, and whether afforestation was considered closer to the particular location in South Swords, north of the field, and whether land acquisition would be required for that, or do you already own the land?
Look, I think we've done a lot of work around that, a lot of studies, and I suppose looked at studies that were done elsewhere. It's probably debatable as to the benefits or how exact those benefits are, but we are progressing that berm that Kenny referred to. That's within our boundary, and so obviously no.
It's within your boundary.
And that's the only area that we're looking at the moment. That doesn't mean we won't look further in the future.
What sort of expectation for delivery, subject to your decision on it?
Back on that. I don't have a date now. I know there's a project team working on it. I don't have the exact date.
Would you consider coming back to the committee with that information? Because I think it would be very helpful.
Okay.
And could I also ask that you might consider coming back to the committee to identify the locations of the 660 properties that you've identified in the committee hearing today, please? In regards to maintenance, your maintenance schedule, you do notify, by and large, you do notify. You send the emails, you put it up on the website, thank you. But I'm just wondering, because I've asked a series of questions to various authorities and everybody's come back and said the same thing. There's no statutory arrangement here, which I find odd, but that's not your issue. My issue is there a minimum notice period that you would be prepared to stick to for maintenance? Because I know that inclement weather has had a bearing on your capacity to take the rubber off the runway, among other things that you've been doing. I completely understand and respect and expect you to be doing that. But ultimately, in terms of the notice for people to the east, for instance, of North Runway, out over Portmarnock, who have never had a plane in the sky over their house before, and all of a sudden there's one at 4 o'clock in the morning. It's not exactly a nice place to be. And I just wondered whether you might volunteer to a minimum notice period.
So look, in an ideal world, we would give the most notice possible, and what we're trying to work towards, as you're aware, is to do this in 6 chunks blocks over the year, roughly about every 8 weeks or so. As you alluded to there, what we are trying to be cognizant of weather conditions and other things that are happening, like times of exams and whatever else. So we are mindful of that. So it might not be exactly 8 weeks between each cycle, but I think what we've done is once we've been able to lock in the date in relation to that, subject to the usual caveats and whether we have tried to communicate that as early as possible. It's been a little bit in flux, as you referenced, in relation to the weather as of late, so hopefully that will settle more as we go forward.
Okay. In relation to cleanliness at the airport, I know you've been fined in the past in relation to toilets and stuff like that, or the condition of toilets. How have you gone about rectifying that or making sure that it doesn't happen again? Are you in the process? I'm thinking particularly in Terminal 1. There's a couple of now it's a while since I was there, admittedly, but there's a couple of loos that I'd be honest with you now. I'd walk to Terminal 2 to use the bathroom instead of going into them, and I wonder whether you have any plans to upgrade certain areas.
Yes, so look, the service quality measure you're referring to there is obviously as the passengers are interviewed in relation to the standards. It's not just about pure cleanliness, obviously it's the whole offering that's available there. What we've done as part of our planning for the summer, a lot of replacements and repairs within those bathrooms. We've looked at obviously the cleaning schedules and increased those as well. And as I mentioned earlier on, we are in the process of taking a block of toilets that are in the landside area, and by moving the boundary, moving them available to passengers in the airside in the Terminal 1 extension area upstairs. So again, looking at some constraints we have around capacity and seeing how we can deal with that. We then have longer term plans around refurbishments of some of those toilets. The challenge is closing them down in a busy airport to refurbish, and how you do that, but working through that. So I believe, we'll see, we are already seeing better scores this year and improvements in that. Will we pass every quarter? It remains to be seen, because of the busyness though, as opposed to the cleanliness and the cleaning standards that are in there. I think it's the congestion. If you queue to get into a toilet, you don't give it a good rating afterwards, even if it's a good experience in there, I guess. So we're looking at that. It's a capacity, it's a standard, and we're committed to continuous improvement as we move forward on it. Okay.
And just, Chair, my last question, just in relation to the experience that passengers would have had in 2022. I assume that we're a million miles from that, and we don't envisage that happening again.
Absolutely. Look, as I referenced there, over 300 staff recruited this year. A lot of focus on ensuring, and I'm sure you referenced that security experience and the impact that had on the rest of the operation. That's obviously in a different place altogether. And we've had a lot of engagement across all of the community, because it wasn't just about security. There was challenges across all of the operation, all of the stakeholders, baggage, everything else. We're not seeing that. I think everybody has. It's not just us. All of the partners across the airport have put in great preparations and plans for this summer ahead. So hopefully that they're seen as we go through the next few months.
Yeah, we're all over it. It's in the corporate memory in terms of what we need to get right. I worked myself last Sunday morning in security, 120,000 people, and they all got through very, very well. So you can never be complacent on it. You have to stay on it. It's about recruitment. It's about training. It's about how you're managing people on the day. It's about how you respond. But we're good at this, and now it's up to us to continue to get people through, because it's part of the airport experience that defines your day of travel.
Can I just clarify, Chairman, for our own benefit here in the committee, in Terminal 2, you go to the left side, isn't that right, to get the new scanners?
Probably shouldn't be giving away those secrets.
We should be but it's on the public record.
So look, all of Terminal 2, there's 10 new machines at Terminal 2. So actually, all of Terminal 2 is all the new machines. It's Terminal 1. You may reference.
Terminal 1 is everything on the left. Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Chair. And look, I'll just finish up a point on the cap. Look, Fingal, I understand, have advised in pre-planning that on the infrastructure application, the cap applies to all passengers, including transit passengers, and counting transfers twice. So look, I don't want to speak for the entire committee, but I'm not satisfied, and I don't think both members of the committee are satisfied that we have a satisfactory explanation as to why the DAA has an exceptional approach to the counting of passengers, right, in relation to the cap. So I just want to get that on the record. You mentioned earlier that in 2016 you were working on the flight paths, and that they were that they were in the public and they were worked on from 2016. You made it seem that it was the existing flight paths from August 2022 and the modifications that happened thereafter, that they were the flight paths that were being publicly discussed. They weren't. It was the east-west flight paths were the only ones that the public and those public representatives ever saw until August 2022 and the first day of those. February 2022. So I just want to get that on the record as well. You mentioned that you've met the community. There is you met the St. Margaret's. I said you met the St. Margaret's Residents Association, the St. Margaret's the Ward Residents Group. You haven't met them individually. You met them as part of the environmental group and the CLG. They're big meetings, only one question asked. You said last time at this hearing that you'd meet the St. Margaret's, the Ward Residents Group. We've had them in to meet our committee, and I'd ask that you'd meet them again. Relations with the community are at an all-time low, and that's something, no matter where this goes, we need to resolve. So I'd ask you, Mr. Jacobs, to meet them as soon as possible. And just on noise as well, Thornton Hall has been earmarked as a site for international protection applicants. The noise range there is 55 to 59 decibels. The WHO recommend a safe limit of 45 decibels. So I would ask that you would engage with the relevant department in relation to that site. If they're going to be building on that site for international protection applicants, they deserve the same level of noise protection as anyone else living in this country. And just finishing up on noise, we have in the Portmarnock area, the Portmarnock Dart Station, for example, you breached the ANCA's own noise abatement policy the last 2 years. Portmarnock in and around the Dart Station is 55 decibels plus, and again, no insulation, no talk of insulation in that area as well. So, I mean, these are, we could have another 2-hour meeting and we could do more rounds. There's more stuff to go, but they're the points I'd just like to finish on.
I mean, just a couple of quick ones. Look, our definition and Fingal's definition and is ours exceptional. It's not exceptional. The IA, the regulator, have also looked at our definition of removing transits and single counting transfers, and from our point of view, they're satisfied with that. So I don't think it's exceptional.
Yeah, they're not.
Perhaps not in its entirety, but in some aspects, yes. But look, there's
are the ones who make the determination, Mr. Jacobs. Sorry to cut across
but the IA are the regulator in Ireland.
Yeah, but not on how you count passengers.
They have made a determination on the count that we have that you can ask them about. But from our point of view, that is confirmed that our the way we define it, single counting transfers and removing transits is valid. On meeting St. Margaret's, look, I've met them as part of the two community groups. There was more than 30 questions answered because it was a very long evening that we went through, and it was productive, but I gave a commitment to the group that I would be happy to meet them again before the end of the year, and that's still the case. On insulation, again, we'll be guided by Fingal, so whether it's Thornton Hall or whether at Portmarnock, if they come into a particular contour that ANCA say, yeah, those buildings should be insulated, we will of course do that because we will follow what the regulator says. Around 50-55 decibels is below the typical level of insulation, but let's see what comes out in the new contours from ANCA.
I'm raising Thornton Hall just because it might slip between the cracks given how it's going to be developed.
I've taken a note of that one.
Yeah,
we'll look at that one, yeah.
Okay. Look, we've reached 3:30, so I'd like to thank Mr. Jacobs, Mr. McCarthy, Mr. McLean for coming to the committee and assisting today on this important matter. The meeting is now adjourned.